The courtroom electrified with tension as Sergeant Tom Cranston, a hardened officer with a history of skirmishing too close to the line, loomed over his newest target. In shades of blue and intimidation, he towered over the black woman, Rachel Sylvan, a well-dressed woman seated with an unyielding poise that seemed out of place amid the raw hostility. Eyes in the gallery were wide and watching, some whispering, others condemning in silence. But Rachel's gaze never wavered, locking with Sergeant Cranston in a clash halfway between defiance and calm disdain. It was as if she knew this moment, all the years of hatred and violence packed in one singular action, was coming. The courtroom was no longer just a place of justice. It had transformed into an arena of primal confrontation. The judge's gavel sounded like a distant echo as the sergeant let loose his rage. The kick was brutal yet precise, aimed not at just her person, but at the defiant spirit she carried. It was more than an assault. It was a loud proclamation of power over empathy. Gasps echoed around them, a collective intake of disbelief. Dust motes danced lazily in the sharp shafts of afternoon light cutting through high windows, accentuating the brutality as if to preserve each second in vivid memory. Time seemed to stretch. Rachel's head snapped back, but there was no scream, no cry of pain. Blood traced a delicate line from her lip to her pristine white blouse, stark crimson on snow. She remained seated, unbowed. Her eyes returned to Cranston, not with fear but with a depth of understanding that unnerved him more than he would ever admit. A shiver of doubt crept through his rigid facade. "Do you know who she is?" someone whispered in the back, fear and incredulity sewn into their tone. The air buzzed with the question, ricocheting from one side of the room to the other until it grew into a roar. Others in uniform shifted uncomfortably, sensing the undercurrent of chaos. But Cranston stood firm, arrogance curving his mouth into a sneer. He was untouchable. Or so he thought. The courtroom did not erupt, it imploded. A silence so heavy with anticipation that every heartbeat became deafening. Rachel rose slowly, unfurling like a tightly coiled spring. She wiped the blood from her lip with the back of her hand, a small act stark with power. Her calm permeated the room, a quiet recomposition of shattered dignity. The world paused on its axis as she prepared to speak. "Officer Cranston," she began, her tone measured, bereft of any personal grudge, only carrying the weight of every victimized voice, silenced by brutality and neglect. "Do you remember my sister?" Rachel's words hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. Recognition flared in Cranston's eyes. A flicker of a memory he could not quite place, not yet, but it was there, demanding attention, stirring discomfort. A kernel of pain from years past, seeded into his conscience, just when he was least prepared to face it. A white cop had the audacity to kick a black woman in the middle of a courtroom, completely unaware that just 4 minutes later he'd be on his knees, begging for mercy from the very woman whose true identity would shatter his career like crushing an ant underfoot. He thought that was a power move? No. That was the kick that launched him straight out of the force. He thought she was just another helpless victim? Wrong. She's a storm forged by decades of injustice, and she came to collect. This isn't just an incident. It's a living indictment of the rotten system he thought would protect him. Ready to witness a courtroom flip so hard it leaves everyone speechless? Watch the full video and drop a comment. Because this time, justice doesn't bang a gavel. Justice kicks back. The judge, sitting high behind his bench, leaned forward for a better look at the woman who defied violence not with fists but with presence. This was the woman who had come to call, reckoning to account. Comments and observations undulated through the space like ripples expanding across the surface of a still lake. Spurred by the gravitational pull of truth, Cranston found himself freezing under the immense scrutiny, rooms full of strangers who were suddenly revisiting every callous assumption they'd carried, assumptions about race, about power, about who we protect and who we punish. Rachel's resilience echoed louder than any gavel ever could. She didn't need to demand justice. She embodied it. "And you thought you could kick it away?" she continued, her voice a whip crack in the suffocating air. Audience members began to shift, uneasy now, not just at Cranston's brazen attack, but at the unsettling realization of complicity by inaction. The gravity of his mistake dawned in those crucial moments, 4 minutes that would mark an irreversible turning point. And there, in the middle of a room supposed to epitomize justice, Rachel Sylvan began to lift the veil on years of systemic injustice, starting with the man who stood before her, the man who only seconds ago believed his actions went unseen. "We know what you've done, officer," came her final pronouncement as the weight of truth bore down. A statement not just for Cranston, but for everyone shielded behind the comfort of blind justice. She stood strong, a paragon of strength drawn from years of battles fought in silence, now breaking into vivid reality in the open eye of the courtroom. As her identity began to unfurl, those present knew this wasn't just about a single unchecked act. It was a clarion call for accountability that would reverberate long after the courtroom doors closed. The transient aura of calm was deceptive, a soft prelude before the echoes of justice began to reverberate anew. The silence settled, a pervasive blanket that stretched across every bench and corner of the courtroom. Rachel stood at the epicenter, a monument to poise amid sudden chaos. Her mere presence challenged everyone to grapple with the rawness of an injustice so visibly perpetrated, yet so commonly ignored. Sergeant Cranston, the muscle-bound officer entrenched in his own arrogance, continued to meet Rachel's unwavering gaze. His breath came in measured bursts, each a futile effort to belittle her silent strength. But the courtroom, now more like a coliseum, had witnessed the fortitude of a woman who had no need for loud protestations. Her quiet defiance was enough to dismantle years of unchecked authoritarianism. Rachel, with deliberate grace, scanned the faces around her. The jurors, the lawyers, the spectators, all transfixed. They were unwitting participants in an unfolding drama, thrust into the limpid stare of truth and justice. Their roles shifted from passive observers to silent arbiters of conscience. No longer could they coast on the comfort of ignorance. They had seen the evidence manifest in the blood on Rachel's blouse. "Rachel Sylvan," someone had whispered in realization. The name fluttered through the room, shedding its syllables like old skin, resonating with a history not known to all, but felt by everyone present. The tension strained against an unspoken expectation, a universal yearning for the officer's mask to slip, revealing the darker allegiance beneath his seemingly righteous exterior. Cranston fought desperately to remain unfazed, but the quiver in his lip belied a growing unease. "How does she stand so calmly?" whispered one woman to another, both bewildered and awed. This unspoken question rippled through the crowd, coloring their perception of this impromptu theater of accountability. The answer loomed in the shadow of Rachel's resolve, an enigma of strength and identity that everyone strained to understand. Judges peered down, eyes narrowing on Rachel's steadfast form. To them, she was an anomaly, a woman seemingly immune to the chaos stirred in her wake, her existence now a compelling argument against an all-too-accepted norm. The gavel, once the ultimate authority in the room, now seemed redundant. Then, Cranston's voice sliced through the silence, a paintbrush of disdain broad-stroked with panic and residual hubris. "This whole charade is ridiculous," he muttered, his eyes darting side to side as if searching for an ally among those now dismissing his authority. "She provoked me." A desperate attempt at justification, his words took on a life of their own, rattling in the echoing chamber as if trying to find validation that simply did not exist. "Provoked you?" Rachel's voice, unwavering as a harbor bell in a storm, called out. Her question hung in the air, a challenge that expounded into the very essence of her silently retracted presence. Her voice peeled back at Cranston's assertion, turning it to vapor under the scrutiny of gathered eyes. "Do you remember my sister?" Her words revisited the bedrock of their exchange. In them lay the story untold, one that seemed to carve pathways of curiosity and repentance across not just Cranston, but everyone within earshot. Whispers rose again, a tide of murmured speculation that began stitching together narratives drawn from glances exchanged and expressions tight-pressed under tension. The fabric of each seated juror's belief system was being knitted with care, one precious thread at a time. Somewhere in the back, a young law student shifted, jotting furious notes as if capturing the marrow of revolution itself. Upper lip christened with sweat, she absorbed the spectacle, understanding more clearly than ever the weight of justice, not merely written, but lived. Cranston shifted, his composure unraveling in phrase before thousands of silent judgments. "You can't seriously believe," he started, yet his voice faltered, arrested by the solemn gaze of the judge whose gavel rested unattended, forgotten. The judge seemed to bore through him with eyes dissecting not just his actions, but those which he symbolized, a system flawed with pretense and steeped in indifference, sitting like shadows cast long by the sun's descent. Those in the gallery exchanged looks amongst themselves, caught between outrage and revelation. They watched Rachel radiating calm resolve, and the officer faltering, the balance of the scales tipping not by force, but by the silent strengths of those like her who refused to be bowed. Rachel did not need to assert herself further. Her silence was a battle cry, dismantling shields of ignorance and fear with an immutable truth visible only to those willing to see. Officer Cranston's facade cracked beneath the weight of those truths, fissures that yawned silently, yet familiar, with each subsequent heartbeat drawing him closer to the brink of an overdue reckoning. And as Rachel's eyes flickered one last time around the assembly, those who met her gaze understood profoundly that justice here was no longer a spectator's sport. They were witnesses to its awakening. Unseen, yet subtly communicated, the signal spread across the room like wildfire. Rachel had given the indication that those behind her, largely allies veiled beneath the guise of mere attendees, were waiting for. It was a nod barely discernible, yet potent enough to set into motion what had been meticulously planned behind the murmurs of anticipation and doubt. In the back row sat a woman of subtly commanding presence, Clara James, a prominent civil rights attorney known for making quakes in legal systems where only tremors were allowed. Her presence at the trial hadn't been mere coincidence. She was a chess piece, carefully positioned in anticipation of this very confrontation. Now, with Rachel's nod as her signal, Clara rose to her feet. The room's tension trembled, redirecting focus onto this new player, stepping into the fray with confidence woven into every thread of her sapphire suit. "Your Honor," Clara called, her voice slicing through the muted crowd like a gavel of accountability. "If I may, I believe there's pertinent evidence that the court must take into consideration." With a composed grace that belied her boiling exasperation at the system's persistent failures, Clara handed over a series of documents to the bailiff, who delivered them to the bench. The judge peered at the pages, his eyes tracing the words that condemned with more precision and efficacy than any raised voice could have achieved. Murmurs erupted in a fresh wave, spectators craning their necks to catch sight of the unfolding legal tremor. Rachel stood a solid figure of patience as Clara's actions echoed her silent harmony. Together they orchestrated a symphony of justice, each note a carefully struck blow against the armor of institutionalized oppression. Cranston's smirk faltered when it became clear this was not the day he'd reckoned it would be. The confidence in each step of Rachel's allies began to erode his defenses, slithering doubt into the guise of his once assured demeanor. "This evidence," Clara continued, casting a pointed look toward the defendant's table, "details numerous complaints filed against Officer Cranston by other civilians and officers alike, all of which capture a pattern of behavior that cannot be overlooked. The room's energy frayed at the mention of concrete proof. It wasn't just Rachel against Sergeant Cranston. It was an avalanche of truths poised to dismantle the precarious shelter of fabricated integrity. Officer Cranston glared at the collection of damning evidence, but no refutation came. Each word on those pages was a blow to the persona he'd built, bricks of commendations and reputation dismantled by the truth behind each complaint, each ignored warning. Rachel, despite being the epicenter of the turmoil, remained a bastion of quiet defiance, her silence speaking volumes. She absorbed the room's energy, weaknesses, and strengths before redirecting it onto those who dared wear blindfolds of privilege and prejudice. Is this really who we protect? Clara's voice held a judgment forged in fire, forcing the courtroom to ponder the dark aspects of its duty. It was no longer a question of culpability, but of moral gravity. Do we let injustice define us, or do we rise against it in unprecedented alignment? Within each paperweight of evidence and whispered repetition of Clara's declaration lay the seeds of change, ready to bloom whenever true equality dared emerge from shadows. The judge's gaze shifted to Cranston, his expression stoic, yet weighted with a certainty veined with disappointment. Beyond the timbered walls of justice, a new order resolved to wrestle its way free, like green sheets of hope daring to challenge the hardened crust of social numbness. Rachel glanced briefly at Clara, a gesture subtle yet filled with gratitude and the acknowledgement of shared purpose. It was the merging of two paths, sisterhood not forged by blood but by steadfast alliance in the pursuit of justice. Your Honor, Clara spoke once more, I request that this evidence be admitted and considered in the current proceedings. We must address not just the actions of one officer, but the culture that shields such behaviors. A loving glance passed between Rachel and those who advocated for her, beacons of light in legality's odyssey. The movement had gained new momentum, machines of civilization cranking forward with fresh intent. Tensions now outlined the edges of anticipation, alive with eagerness for the conclusion to this dramatic shift. For those present, the scales of justice had tipped in favor of Rachel Sylvan, and through her every voice silenced in similar corridors of authority. Rachel's path, chiseled with care through each step of struggle, was no longer hers alone to tread. Her journey had become a galvanizing force, alliances forged under the scrutiny of skeptical gazes. The walls of that courtroom, once impenetrable fortresses of stagnant tradition, now echoed with the potential for change. Change that Clara James and Rachel Sylvan knew was long overdue. The unsaid understanding that transpired between them painted a picture visible to all. Today was not just a reckoning, but a revolution, captured in the annals of courtroom history. As transactions of glances continued among the participants of this tribunal of truth, one thing became clear. This was only the beginning of an arc of enduring justice. The courtroom vibrated with the palpable energy of a quiet storm, the kind that changes landscapes before anyone recognizes the downpour has begun. As Clara James asserted her presence with each bullet point of misconduct, Rachel Sylvan stood as a testament to unyielding fortitude. Around them, faces charged with anticipation and dread awaited the fallout. Unknown to many, Rachel's identity held significance beyond her immediate persona. She was a specter from a past case, a ghost with the power to haunt the status quo. For years, she had been quietly impactful, but today, her essence was thrown into the spotlight, her name gathering mythic reverence among those who understood her true connection to the officer and what he represented. Cranston, still standing but visibly shaken, struggled to maintain the arrogant facade he wore like a second skin. The documents bore his past failures like scars laid bare for public scrutiny, and beneath them lay the roots of his disdain, writhing in daylight for all to see. Do you remember when she died? Rachel's voice cut through the room like a clarion call, unwavering, demanding confrontation with history. Her sister had been the victim of a system that, like Cranston, believed itself invincible. The courtroom, now the theater of their history, was a living tableau of unshed tears and unresolved battles. She had once been faceless to the system, but now she demanded to be seen. not just for herself, but for every pain echoed in her sister's unjust demise. A gasp rippled among those seated as her words snapped the silence like a dried branch cracking underfoot. Memories splintered through Cranston's stoic frame as he visualized that dark day, imprinted in his grim portfolio. Recognition dawned cruelly, a fractured memory he tucked away with all the ease of conscience, cleansed through disregard and ignorance. Rachel had worn her sister's loss like a cloak, a protective barrier, and an ever-present reminder. Her struggle was not born of vengeance, but of necessity, a truth she'd carried heavy in her bones that now burst forth with the power to sway gavel and resolve. The courtroom trembled with a poignant silence as Rachel continued, her words weaving a tapestry of pain and perseverance. She was Cheyenne Sylvan, and she deserved a name. Her declaration did what justice had failed to do for far too long. It gave voice to the silent. In the momentary hush, the gravity settled. Each soul understood the significance held beneath the veil. Here stood a woman holding broken pieces of justice, pieced together through pure resilience. And as those pieces fell into place, clarity washed over even the most hardened skeptic. Cranston's defense eroded beneath him like so many years of fabricated superiority. Though the judge's silence was resolute, his attention was fixed with a subtle intensity on Rachel, betraying the reckonings he must confront internally. The intimate exposure of truth had cracked suffocating norms, shedding light upon the shadowed corridors that allowed men like Cranston free rein with little accountability. Shuffling feet broke the silent contemplation as jurors began to exchange concerned looks, reshaping their perceptions not just of Cranston, but of a system they inadvertently supported through negligence. Rachel drew in a breath, its weight textured with more than air, infused with a lifetime of experiences no law degree could replicate. Beside her, Clara was a sentinel of legal might, but it was Rachel whose narrative became the cutting edge of transformative change. This catalysis of conscience further merged audience with participants, compelling unconscious shifts in understanding. The crowd felt itself woven into the fabric of her story, a thread no severance could disengage from humanity's grand tapestry. When my sister's voice was silenced, mine found its volume, Rachel confessed, her eyes softening upon memories, tender yet dimmed, to those moments shared with Cheyenne, capped eternally in recollection but never to unfold again. Today, she speaks through me. Where once there was only shocking indifference to injustice, emerged newfound realization. As each word left Rachel's lips, they hung, suspended, as if captured by divine hand. The judge, acknowledging the shifted paradigm, straightened in his seat, forever altered by the truths unearthed within his domain. Weighty decisions loomed at the edges of collective consciousness, their inevitability as unavoidable as justice itself. Rachel Sylvan captured the room, and in her receipt of acknowledgement, so too did the voice of every marginalized being stomped silent beneath prejudice's heel. Her narrative wasn't just spirit rising, it was a hard-forged key slipped deftly into the lock of liberation. In those fleeting minutes, atop a stage of juridical history, she delivered a clarion declaration against the harms of compliance. Within, all could feel the reverberations, national in scope, influencing change, shifting minds, remapping the contours of authority that dictated truths exhaled by those in power. The lesson was ongoing, no longer a passive, tragic inevitability cataloged in courtroom archives. This was an awakening, and it began with a woman cloaked not in invincibility, but emboldened vulnerability. Each heartbeat of the courtroom synchronized to this newfound potential for change, joining consciously in the pursuit of justice. Together, they understood the consequence of the revelation shared within those hallowed quarters. The courtroom, once cloaked in rigidity, now beamed with unseen potential. curving toward a future where voices like Rachel's would always take precedence against silence. Whispers surged through the room like lazy wave, curiosity churning beneath the surface as realization dawned that Rachel was not who she seemed. What appeared as a straightforward case of courtroom misconduct had unraveled into a complex tapestry of historical injustice and personal redemption. Each spectator sat in silent contemplation as the revelations painted vivid narratives in the courtroom's thick air. Sergeant Cranston stood, now visibly distressed as the room's energy shifted inexorably against him. This woman he had tried to belittle, whom he thought insignificant, a mistake he would regret for the rest of his days. He could feel the tight grip of accountability squeezing past his every defense, every excuse he'd ever harbored. Rachel's disclosure had detonated a thunderous revelation. She wasn't simply a victim. She was an avenger of her sister's memory, a living testament to injustice rebuffed and refused. Her presence gifted Cheyenne a voice anew, a tenacity breached only by death, yet revived in spirit, now ringing across the marble floors like a bell of awakening justice. 4 minutes, Rachel stated, the words barely above a whisper, yet loaded with the weight of epochs. It only takes minutes to change destinies, officer. Cranston's composure was firmly under siege, his mind a battlefield where doubt and denial collided with inevitability. Once a haphazard castle of impunity had sheltered Cranston, built high on the precedents of overlooked misconduct, a fortress where he had felt untouchable. But the tides were changing, and the inevitability of justice washed relentlessly toward him, an unmoored vessel caught among the undertow. The jury rumbled with questions unvoiced, yet their expressions bore witness to decisions made, rewritten, during those 4 transformative minutes since Rachel's true identity had begun to shine through. Victory, once drawn solely in the cadence of law books and procedures, now demanded to be reframed in light of humanity and moral obligation. Lawyers on both sides shifted, recalibrating their approaches amid this seismic shift. Stubborn certainties were no longer enough. Ideals must be reconsidered in the afterglow of Rachel's revelations. Her identity revealed, and the secrets carried upon it burst free. Change resonated within these walls, a whispering conductor among the stillness, rearranging perspectives shaped by insidiously comfortable ignorance. Today was not just a courtroom drama, but a chapter reshaping its players, bringing them to account within the larger narrative of an evolving world. In the shadowed recesses where doubt might have lingered, clarity now dawned. Even the judge, once neatly cocooned in the objectivity of his role, found himself softened, humanized by the empathy demanded from Rachel's courage. She had resurrected humanity from legalese rhetoric, anchoring jurisprudence with lived experience. As the courtroom doors stood open, echoing corridors beckoned them toward justice's horizon, an unending path guided by steadfast allies, born in the fire of shared truths. Not even the slender steel of manacles could dim this brightness, nor bars of orthodoxy confine the resplendent illumination of awakened consciousness. Lies insidiously woven into institutional fabric began to unravel, a gossamer whisper falling with the grace of autumn leaves yielding under conscience's hopeful renewal. The officers, seated stiffly at attention, could no longer feign disinterest. They shifted in their seats, solidarity among many eroding under scrutiny, even as those willing to reckon with truth surfaced, eager to amend what had gone so egregiously wrong. 4 minutes is all it takes. Rachel's words echoed once more, her voice reverberating like the last notes of a symphony, poised in pristine quiet, awaiting only thunderous applause. Her declaration wasn't just for Cranston, nor those complacent officers, but for everyone complacent in belief systems untouched by introspection. Even as Rachel's eyes embraced the presence of Clara, her legal bastion, she knew the battle was far from over. They wouldn't rest until Rachel's voice ensured her sister's fatal silence became catalyst and legacy, the launching pad for obliterating the silent passivity of future would-be enablers and perpetrators alike. In these moments of unearthed revelations, the contempt once rippling through society's fabric now lay countered by understanding, compassion, a realization sheathed in the resilience of truth and voices newly freed from chains only indifference could forge. Applause wasn't what Rachel's narrative demanded. Instead, it evoked reflection, unearthing solace in the unshed tears and unheard protests of too many lost to yesterday's constraints. Today, those tides were changing irrevocably, inviting souls to bear witness to an untamed, awakened justice. In Rachel's steadfast presence and Clara's undeniable legal acumen, the judge and jury found not just ruination of understanding, but the seeds of a new jurisprudence, law inscribed by the testimony of living, breathing reality, untethered from past constraints, bearing witness to tomorrow's fresher dawn. The air in the courtroom seemed to hum with a tangible anticipation, like the split second before a thunderstorm breaks the sky. The whispers of Rachel's revelation had not yet settled, and every eye remained fixed on her, the center of a narrative unfolding in dramatic swells and pauses. Even Cranston, standing stiff and struggling to mask his unraveling facade, felt the palpable countdown within the charged silence, a collective consciousness ticking toward his inevitable reckoning. Rachel scanned the room, her gaze settling on individuals who embodied the spectrum of society. Jurors, witnesses, officers, each a fragment of the greater system she stood against. These were the faces of those who would interpret her reality and determine the trajectory of justice. The judge, maintaining a stalwart aura of control despite the swirling undercurrents, leaned forward to speak. His voice broke the tense silence with the authority of decisions weighed heavy with circumstance. "The evidence presented," he began, a gravity in his timbre that bespoke the solemnity of the day, "compels us to consider the full scope of Officer Cranston's action." Cranston flinched at the words, the room closing around him like an iron cage. The realization that his fate lay in others' hands was a bitter pill, one reinforced by the echo of Rachel's words looped endlessly in his mind. 4 minutes. A lifetime's choices collapsed into a moment of undeniable accountability. The courtroom's dynamics shifted palpably. Rachel's presence acted as a fulcrum, balancing the scales of justice, her narrative forcing everyone to reconsider the symbiosis between personal prejudice and systemic failure, and at its core, the unspoken question, what legacy will we leave? Tension simmered as Clara James drew herself to full height, her demeanor as fierce as iron wrought in flame, addressing the room with a conviction that mirrored Rachel's resolve. This isn't merely about a single act of violence, but rather a spotlight on endemic aggression, a pattern extending beyond the act itself, she declared, broadening the scope from individual condemnation to societal indictment. 4 minutes of brutality reflect lifetimes of injustice endured. Clara pressed on, her words like hammers, pounding nails of truth into the courtroom's heart. Rachel's truth forces us to confront our complicity, whether by silence or explicit action. But today, we strive to become more than we've been. Her words resonated, challenging those gathered to examine their own reflections, their place within this historical moment. The challenge was palpable, urging all to embrace transformation rather than retreating into the cracks of old norms and biases. Cranston, still attempting to project confidence, felt the facade slipping further. The courtroom's attention honed into a focused beam, dissecting his armor until he became a silhouette cut starkly against the fullness of truth now bare. Cranston stammered, struggling beneath the intense scrutiny. It wasn't meant. The words died on his lips, a confession left unfinished as comprehension dawned painfully slow, dragging his ego over shards of vulnerability. The jury listened, critically observing his discomfort, comparing it silently against the steadfast fortitude of Rachel, unyielding under the spotlight's glare. They bore witness to 2 tales, one of accidental acknowledgement, fraught with guilt, and another of intentional endurance. A martyr, not of self-victimization, but steadfast movement. Rachel, maintaining her poise, offered no further retort. Judgment lay not in repeating what was already woven within the collective understanding. The reality danced before them, raw and unsanitized. Culpability extends beyond beyond the individual to every fiber within the system," Clara continued, the strength in her voice demanding not just judgment but transformative action. "Today we have an opportunity not simply to punish, but to reform, through acknowledgement, through restructuring attitudes that perpetuate cycles of aggression." These declarations cut deeper than any sentence imposed, challenging the audience to recalibrate views twisted by implicit permissions, biases seamlessly ingrained within societal fabric. The judge, seeking to reconcile the emotional intensity churning within the courtroom, nodded towards Rachel and Clara, acknowledging their plea for awakening. The power was in their words, their demands heavier than any gavel descended upon resonating wood. No longer was the focus on one man's misconduct, but on the broader canvas, a society grappling with its reality, expressing a hunger for change through the story of Rachel and Cheyenne Sylvan. Silently, Rachel closed her eyes momentarily, a ghost of a smile playing across her lips. It was not joy she felt, but the realization of forward momentum. It was not the end, but the start of an awakening echo. The silence lengthened like shadows at dusk, drawing into its embrace the calm before the decisions dictated by a newfound clarity. Here, under the weight of truth transformed, the courtroom held its breath, balancing the scales, poised on the edge of a shift unprecedented, an unsealed destiny, one path illuminated by the light of truth, raw and unapologetic. Sudden clarity enveloped the room as the full scope of truth settled in. The narrative shift was like sunlight breaking through heavy clouds, illuminating corners of understanding previously cloaked in complacency and denial. It was as if everyone, from the judge to the jurors to the spectators, had inched a step closer to a precipice from which they could view the churning waters of justice and injustice below. Sergeant Cranston, now fully ensnared within the revelations, felt an absence of the familiar safety that his badge and uniform had always promised. His past misdeeds and unchecked power resurfaced like ghosts previously dismissed, now floating visibly in the charged air of the courtroom. The veneer of authority, once invincible against the backdrop of silence, now shimmered fragile against the spotlight of scrutiny. Clara James, unyielding in her pursuit, continued to press her advantage with the dexterity of a master strategist unveiling her coup de grace. She moved seamlessly, like a conductor guiding an orchestra to its crescendo. "Your Honor," she addressed the court, her voice dancing with a mix of resolve and righteous determination. "It is vital we examine not merely isolated incident but a pattern, systemic inaction enabling abuses to continue unchecked." As documents of complaint after complaint tumbled forth, each a testament to Cranston's long-standing tendencies towards excessive force and prejudicial targeting, tension in the room spiraled upwards. Each entry was a new layer of condemnation, slicing through the protective facade he had constructed over years of negligence and privilege. Details emerged vivid and sharp, like shards of broken glass reflecting slivers of light into every recess of human conscience. The audience, once passive vessels on a sea of courtroom lore, meanwhile shifted, turning inwards to wrestle with the narrative manifesting before them. The transformation was overt. The spectators were no longer separated from their environment. They became fully engaged entities, drawn inexorably into participation with the proceeding. Rachel's eyes swept across those gathered, her focus both steady and reflective, casting an intricate tapestry preserving Cheyenne's memory, her own strength serving as a loom spun with conviction and love. Cheyenne's resonance, though born in injustice, was now a rallying cry, an anthem for change, orchestrated through Rachel's fortitude. It was inside these revelations that Cranston's defense crumbled further, his impotent arguments drowned beneath the unforgiving tide of accountability. More than the technicalities of courtroom procedures, it was the undeniable weight of truth which threatened to drag him beneath currents too powerful for obfuscation to quell. The judge leaned in, his expression still inscrutable, yet his position visibly altered by the torrent of unsettling truths. The bench itself seemed to breathe as a singular entity, rhythmically contemplating the profound narrative transformations that had taken place. It was a breath shared by all, an extension of empathy and introspection, fraught with complexity and possibility. "The past," Clara enunciated, each word a hammer upon Cranston's fortress of denial, "collaborates with our future. Acts neglected haunt us until they're faced. Justice may not be swift, but it is inevitable." Cranston flinched, each statement bruise-like against his fragile composure. He was forced to confront images of his false sanctity burning away beneath Rachel's unblinking gaze. "Officer Cranston," the judge began, his voice gravel mixed with empathy, more warning than threat. "The time has come to reckon with your actions, not as isolated offenses, but part of an unsettling pattern." The silence, filled with the electric pulse of untold stories streaming into view, invited the courtroom participants to embrace change instead of stifling it with bureaucratic red tape or unnecessary checks within its long-established confines. Cranston held on to the illusion of dignity, but cracks widened with every heartbeat, each tick of the clock signaling his downfall. The aura of invulnerability faded, leaving exposed not just guilt but an understanding, the certainty of his actions clawing back from the void, demanding repentance. Rachel remained motionless, her stillness a counterpoint to the maelstrom swirling in Cranston's eyes. Her presence was not just a reminder of the injustice dealt to her sister, but a herald of transformation, even here, in this courtroom of shadows dispelled by dawn. Above, sunlit beams sliced through sanctuary windows, refracting into a kaleidoscope of renewed clarity that bound every individual present in refreshed unity with truth's emerging form. It wasn't just a legal battle now, it stretched beyond judicial constraints, nestling firmly in humanity's collective soul, the limb between justice sought and justice delivered. Rachel's quiet victory with each revelation was not in crushing Cranston with weight alone, it was in extending beyond hatred's shadow, capturing the room in empathetic consciousness, turning each participant into an active witness, perhaps even unwitting advocates, driven by the moral compass she and Clara liberally rewove before them. In the moment's unfolding, a spectrum upon which tomorrow's justice rested revealed itself to all, the gravity of proceeding not merely with retribution in mind, but as purveyors of restoration, change tangible not just for today, but for the generations yearning for Rachel's story firmly rooted within their tomorrows. As the courtroom absorbed its newfound responsibility, Rachel Sylvan and Clara James shepherded truth beyond threshold's edge, solidifying today's justice for a precedent intended to invite others to reclaim voices unjustly silenced across the world. This was the inexorable path upon which truth marched, the destiny of justice intertwined with human endeavor, initiated by the silent strength of those unafraid to bear witness to their own significant courage. The courtroom settled into an anticipatory quiet, the collective consciousness perched on the razor-thin edge of understanding and change. Rachel stood, a silent advocate for all who had been wronged, an icon of resistance wrapped in the quiet dignity that spoke louder than any roar. It was a moment thick with potential, where the weight of past oppression met the hope of future promise. Across the aisle, Cranston's once impervious facade showed signs of disintegration. His eyes darted, searching for an anchor amid the storm he himself had sowed. The shifting sands of truth beneath him threatened to swallow his long-held impunity. Each breath he took matched the rhythm of the ticking clock, echoing the minutes squandered on cruelty now measured in justice's careful, meticulous recalibration. Rachel's silence was a canvas, her eyes vivid contrasts painting struggles and victories. For those who observed with fresh clarity, her figure offered a mirror, reflecting their place within this immense, unfolding narrative of systemic reckoning. It was then that Rachel became not just an individual on a personal quest, but the embodiment of a collective consciousness. Her story echoed through countless others besieged by injustice, activating a calling within each witness to participate in this chapter of change. In the jury's ranks, whispers crept, like vines of doubt intertwined with resolution. They grappled with their newfound responsibility, knowing their decision could shift the paradigm, making Rachel's story a definitive breach of tradition, power not behind a gavel, but held within every reformative verdict laid bare in justice's name. "I have stood witness," Rachel began, her voice rising like dawn through shadowed silence. "I've borne testimony to a truth that survives beyond struggle, where justice's light carves through the veneer of false security we've sheltered beneath." Her words cascaded with palpable emotion, a connective thread that wove their thoughts, binding diverse experiences into collective resolve. Cranston visibly crumpled further beneath the mounting truths, his arrogance unraveled by consequence, casting his ideals into the abyss of shame. With a strength that radiated warmth and light, Rachel continued to reshape the audience's vision. Each silent word spoken is more than just mine. It carries a multitude of narratives echoing through these walls, realigning today's justice to speak for tomorrow. Seams and name and come. Among the gallery sat a man, once a newcomer to legal halls, jotted furtive notes, fingers stained with ink and resolve. His life had led him here for the first time, seeking hope amid the mundane injustices encapsulated within the lifespan of silent minutes, now etched vibrantly onto paper, recording history's pulse in real time. The judge, custodian of the present trial, felt his heart shift beneath the law's weighty potential. In Rachel, he saw more than a victim. He saw the birthright of truth, demanding reclamation from society's dulled edge, redirecting focus from vengeance toward restoration and greater empathy refined through shared integrity. This truth, he postulated, his voice firm with decision's gravity, invites us not merely to punish, but to teach, to right wrongs, and reform our collective consciousness, entrusting justice with the compass of humanity's inherent dignity. Rachel's words, her presence, had initiated that shift, guiding not just herself, but courts and juries and audience past shadow's edge into burgeoning light, wrapped in newfound understanding. The shifts within and around the courtroom were more profound than steel bars slammed shut or verdicts handed. They transcended usual confines, sparking a revolution within perception and morality. As reformative justice unveiled its wings, the trial evolved into legacy, a beacon for systemic awakening, guided by those unafraid to wield truth. Cheyenne's name, once spoken into voids, now found new breath through Rachel's triumph. It echoed along marbled corridors and echoed even longer within those who bore witness, creating ripples increasingly rare against the tidal waves of egregious silence long maintained. Each soul present, now witness to such transformative grace, bore a new responsibility, their narratives forever entwined with Rachel's march toward societal reckoning. The courtroom's walls vibrated visibly beneath the influence of truth matured in its rightful context, clinging to echoes of determined resolve, a coherent echo carried past, present, and into future vistas. Now freed of restraint, Cranston's cloak of denial lay discarded beside him. He'd faced no immortal adversary except his reflection, born in responsibilities unjustly bestowed by past shadows and tainted with choice long denied fruition. Rachel embraced the room with her calm, vouching silently for justice, transformation her constant ally. Within moments unfolding, justice's luminescent form invited all to engage beyond boundaries defined by shackles not yet cast aside, a movement initiated in collective courage. Each heartbeat belonged not just to those present, but onto a broader canvas where truths emerged triumphant against night's despair, an expanse drawn from human potential Rachel ignited with each emancipated truth. 1908, W.H. In the radiance of post-trial reflections brought into light, those present felt the armament of justice melded with newfound responsibility. The room united, their truth now a living entity, tracing bounds ever transcendent, infused with the potential within Rachel's eyes, Cheyenne's voice, and the infinite journey weaving lifetimes into refracted clarity. Together, beyond concrete manifestations nestled in previous institutions, they walked beyond, lifted by whispers burgeoning with strengthening grace, the embodiment of justice reclaimed and carried forth by tomorrow's legacy, empowered by their unified momentum, astride truth's transformative frequency. In the serene aftermath of the courtroom drama, where the air hung heavy with the echo of transformative justice, the gravity of Rachel's stand did not dissipate, but rather absorbed into the skin of every witness. Her eyes carried the stories unsaid, the triumph over silent oppression, now a beacon to navigate by. The room's energy shifted from one of charged anticipation to something more profound, a place and moment where justice was not just an obligation, but an opportunity to reshuffle the societal deck. The judge, who sat as a gatekeeper of the proceedings, allowed himself a moment of reflective pause, his gaze lingering on Rachel, a silent acknowledgement of her role in unveiling the truths that had laid dormant far too long. Sergeant Cranston, his earlier bravado now a tattered remnant, stood amidst this transformed landscape as a man diminished, bearing the weight of consequence long denied him. His eyes were cast downward, no longer the eyes of a commanding officer, but those of a man stripped bare before the judgments of truth. In those eyes flickered a realization, not of immediate redemption perhaps, but an understanding that demanded reflection beyond the constraints of ego. Rachel's presence invigorated the space, a newfound allyship between her and those who silently pledged allegiance to justice, not merely as an abstract concept, but as a lived experience, deeply personal, profoundly shared. She had awakened something, not just in Cranston, who now faced the reality of his actions, but in the entirety of the judicial process. Justice isn't static, Clara had said, standing by Rachel's side, the steadfast pillar of legal fortitude. Her words, now truth-coded, danced in the air, weaving into the fabric of courtroom reality. It demands movement, change, growth, and today, it demands we face our own reflections. In this juncture, Rachel seemed to take on a glow not met by the others. Those in attendance found in her story not just a courtroom narrative, but a call to action, an imperative to reevaluate roles played out on both sides of the justice divide. It was a call that spoke to the heart of human experience, universal in its plea for dignity, recognition, and equality. Silence settled as the judge, presiding over the metamorphosis that transpired under his watchful eye, prepared to render a closing statement. His voice held the resonance of one who had witnessed society unfold at Grace's touch, a touch facilitated by Rachel's courage and Clara's resolute truth. In seeing what we've seen today, he began, choosing each word with the care of a sculptor, chip by chip revealing life beneath stone, we are reminded of the unyielding power truth commands, the courage to speak it and the honor to receive it. None are without impact. The assembly appeared to breathe as one, as the implications of systemic change began to unravel within their collective consciousness. It wasn't simply about reaching a verdict in this case, but about laying foundations for perpetual reflection, reevaluation, and reawakening in future cases yet unseen. Cranston's form seemed to shrink beneath the radiance of Rachel's righteous indignation. This wasn't about vengeance, but illumination. His presence had become a footnote in Rachel's indelible narrative, and even as the story edged toward culmination, Cranston understood that though his chapter might close today, the book would continue, its pages filled with the voices he had denied, now given life in rightful chorus. Rachel, observing the reactions around her, seemed to collect support from the steely resolve etched in Clara's face. The silence they held weighed not with remorse but a vibrant kinetic gratitude that expanded toward the unseen spectators outside these walls, audiences beyond tangential arc observing, learning, engaging in this unfolding tale, we find ourselves not just in search of justice, the judge continued, but in pursuit of seeing ourselves, our systems made more just. What will we have learned when all is said and done? The room inhaled, a collective breath heralding accountability, newfound resolve, binding those present in a reaffirmation of integrity. Rachel, in those last moments, remained a speaking silent figure, her silence declarative not of retreat, but of resolve, cemented upon a belief none could fracture. In beneath the consciousness resonated Cheyenne Sylvan's echo, her presence embodied by Rachel, extending beyond mortal constraints. Her voice, unsilenced, prevailed in the beating hearts carrying the mantle she'd left, marking the end of silence and the start of profound revelation. The questions standing before the remaining defectors were not of inaction's acquiescence, but of forward motion toward a more inclusive justice, one drawing healing not in punishment but in understanding, enacted by those willing to carry torches forward, igniting others along their righteous path. As the gavel descended to mark the close of proceedings, the room stood solidified in the shared understanding of history made tangible. Rachel's victory belonged to more than one woman. It belonged to generations, tugging persistent threads burned away long ago. Her narrative now knitted into collective consciousness for every soul-defying inertia. Leaving the courtroom that day was not an abdication, but a single step in a march extended far beyond into open, empathetic horizons. Humanity's refined through recognition and courage wielded anew. Rachel Sylvan, having breathed life into Cheyenne's silence, now joined the throng, leaving behind echoes traversed in calls for justice belied by memories etched firm within tomorrow's foreboding yet hopeful narrative, ever unfolding within each committed heart to its promise of truth. The courtroom's heavy doors closed behind Rachel, sealing in a transformative chapter that had shifted the very foundations of those within. Outside, the world seemed lifetimes removed from the contention and revelations that had woven new paths inside. The sun, climbing low in the afternoon sky, cast a warm glow over the courthouse steps, a radiant testament to the justice that had unfurled slowly, inevitably. Sergeant Cranston lingered in the shadows of the building's grand entrance, his silhouette a stark contrast against the light spilling across the plaza. It hadn't taken much for the weight of the trial's revelations to press him down, compressing layers of bravado into thin regrets cast heavily in retrospect. He wore the burden of self-awareness now, a diadem tightened by the truths Rachel had brandished before him and the gallery. For Cranston, those few steps outside represented something profound yet elusive, a possibility to frame the present reflection with the weighty knowledge gained through the trial. He stood solitary, absorbing the casual life bustling around him, stark reminders that the world outside cared little for the intricacies he sought to navigate anew. Rachel emerged, her stature casting a larger-than-life presence across the courthouse steps. In this newfound daylight, surrounded by allies who had championed her truth, she embodied the transformation longer sought, a change not just reactionary but proactive, the consequence of a justice finely stretched to accommodate every story. Clara stepped beside her, the formidable attorney's presence, formidable yet unweighed by arrogance, her demeanor carrying the echoes of battlefields won far from public gaze. She exhaled deeply, her breath signaling the closure of one journey, yet acknowledging the horizon imbued with infinite challenges to come. "People will remember today," Clara stated, her voice soft yet imbued with an intensity capable of shaking foundations, not just for what happened inside, but for how it resonates beyond these walls. Rachel turned her focus outward, contemplating the city alive and breathing beneath the golden sky, the burgeoning promise knitted into every face, every step, every potential for equitable change. "We've only begun something," she replied, her voice a melodic counterpoint to Clara's fervor, distinct yet complementary. "Each story that rises from today's echoes brings us closer." Beyond them, scattered figures had gathered, woven together in threads of loyalty drawn taut by shared values. Some guards, once detached, now looked on with not just professional detachment, but an understanding ripening through exposure to Rachel's narrative, a story intertwined with so many facets of human experience they found themselves compelled to acknowledge. Sergeant Cranston, Clara addressed him as he shuffled forth from shadow toward the light, his face lined with recognition of himself and his place in the grander scheme of things. As a participant, not defender, he stood exposed to a vulnerability streaming with opportunity. Possibilities to which today's reverberations could guide him. Rachel faced the man who had, with one stark act, unraveled his own stability and triggered a sequence of justice delayed yet fulfilled. Today was the start. She spoke to him not from a place of malice, but from the depths of enduring understanding. We each have a chance to learn, to adapt, and perhaps to heal. Cranston met her gaze, wrestling with his newfound understanding. The awareness had become like an ember in his eyes, flickering but not yet extinguished. A murmur of acknowledgement ripened through deep self-reflection. He nodded, the gesture small yet resounding in its alliance to personal truth. On that threshold, apologies were unnecessary, for his understanding spoke more fully than words could transcribe. Rachel's hand extended, incongruously gentle, a beacon suggesting roads less traveled, where their steps might entwine with the past stories of others in pursuit of reformed justice. Cranston's acceptance of that gesture marked not just an individual's journey, but a beginning tethered to human empathy. As they stood among the hum of life teeming around them, the sunlight fractured hope into infinite vistas, pathways nascent with opportunity winding through the city, spiraling forth from this intersection of courage and consequence, vulnerability and renewal. The air hummed with latent possibilities born from truth spoken into existence, each heartbeat synchronizing not just with Rachel nor Cranston, but with humanity's universal quest, the pursuit not just for justice and retribution, but justice as creation, generation, forging futures unshackled by history's confines. Rachel felt not triumph, but serene resolve, a truth unfaltering in her grasp, illumined by aligned certainties now realized within loving memory. A march forward scripted by her steps, by Clara's steadfast support, and by unexpected allies like Cranston, all fused in their collective commitments to tomorrow's world. Together, intertwined by truths, voiced into everlasting reverberations, they embraced the sprawling city with each step, inviting others to walk beside them, united by the resonance of the day, writing new chapters, chapter by chapter, each one echoing forth from Rachel's unwavering presence, the echoes rippling into future days, beaconed against shadow by permanent legacy. As they walked away from the courthouse's imposing facade, the city pulsed with life, each rhythm resonant with the echoes of Rachel's story, casting ripples that extended far beyond the immediacy of their actions today. Rachel and Clara moved together like figures in a living tableau, each step they took lighting paths on the entwined labyrinth of justice newly uncovered. Rachel's mind brimmed with the sensory overload of freedom she now felt, a nascent energy unfurling in her veins, fueled by the justice long denied to Cheyenne, the sister whose silence had not been in vain. Beside her, Clara radiated an aura of pride imbued with shared sacrifice, her legal prowess now interwoven with Rachel's personal triumph in ways eternally inscribed within the annals of systemic change. Change doesn't come easily, Clara noted, her voice slipping between the hum of passing cars and the soft rustle of wind that mirrored the season's shift. Her words danced with the wisdom of pragmatism shaped by courtroom battles fought over decades. But today, we remind those systems on the brink of stagnation that they, too, can be vibrant with justice. Rachel nodded, absorbing the profundity inherent in Clara's words. Here, amidst the kaleidoscope of urban life, change embodied a living testament to the echoes of struggle and triumph shared by countless others rallied beyond systemic suppression. It's more than just one courtroom, Rachel reflected, her thoughts wrapping around the impacts envisioned anew. It's about ensuring every voice, every story is finally heard, integrated into the broader narrative of societal redemption. These were more than mere platitudes. They enveloped a sphere of influence Rachel could already sense reverberating through her actions' peripheries. Hers was a commitment that transcended litigation, a vow crafted to influence, inspire, and invigorate hearts beyond numbers tabulated under gavel ruling. It was a vow made not in opposition, but as an invitation for alignment toward shared goals. Around them, the city donned its colors like a tapestry woven through human endeavor. The skyline crowned with symbols of progress, the streets resonant with the hums of aspirations mirrored by every stride they took. This was home, and in its embrace, Rachel's mission found fertile ground upon which its seeds of change could take root. As they crossed into the park, a green oasis amidst the bustling metropolis, conversations became interwoven with laughter and muted discussions. Rachel observed people in motion, their lives unfolding unscripted, yet slowly influenced by the collective knowledge instilled by today's courtroom victory. In each face, Rachel perceived glimpses of potential allies, future advocates whose whispers could metamorphosize into roaring tributes once empowered. Here was a community, the heart of social conscience renegotiated, awaiting the soft brush of inspiration to provoke broader waves of kinetic engagement tuned to its frequency. Clara and Rachel edged closer to a scene rejuvenating in its simplicity. Families gathered across green spaces, lives interlocking in the dance of everyday miracles renewed by opportunity. The simple, profound acts of hope carrying implicit potential for change. Even there, their presence felt like an arc extending beyond history's despair, stretching forward for a brighter inclusiveness embraced wholeheartedly. Rachel's mind wandered into spaces imagined, families scattered and warped by the legacy of injustice, now becoming pioneers, weaving new patterns into societal fabric, threads illuminated by their conscious deviations from oppression's patterns. Here lay potential gateways, fleeting yet significant, portals to a broader mosaic of liberation. "I think today spoke to more than we could have hoped," Clara said, her gaze tracing her surroundings, the universe expanding before her like an embrace, offered by the hopeful city beneath ever-expanding horizons. A beginning, perhaps, but a potent one. They stopped at a nearby bench, allowing the park's ambience to enfold them in serene contemplation. Rachel took a deep breath, feeling Cheyenne's essence intertwined with her own journey, an energy never lost but refracted into memory's warmth. The space around felt both sacred and energizing, curated by the intention shared among those who believed in more than mere constructs of justice. Each story matters. Every fight breathes life into purpose, Rachel mused, words buoyant yet grounded in conviction. It's in places like this, Clara, beyond courtrooms, that we nurture the change we want to see. Clara smiled, her expression a testament to the joy birthed from understanding and communal narratives redefined in spaces known for their pervasive exclusion. Here and now, they imagined a world wherein advocacy sprang not from necessity alone, but from the collective commitment to understanding and equity sown across generations. They left the park, stepping back into life's ensembles, reknit by the truth espoused within courtroom walls. Rachel and Clara ventured into a world moldable by justice's touch, charting destinies reshaped by courage's cadence, beckoning others into their journey. Indeed, today marked the continuation of something truly revolutionary, a march propelled by diversity's harmonies, each note a clarion call inviting listeners to construct legacies resonant with justice's ever-evolving promise. As Rachel and Clara wound their way through the city's heart, past the echoing voices in bustling cafes and down streets painted with shadows stretched long by the setting sun, they emerged from the afternoon's profound revelations into an evening ripe with possibility. It was in this gentle transition from day to dusk that the true weight of their shared journey became clear, a journey where stories like Rachel's were now given the wings to fly beyond constrained confines. The buildings rose around them like sentinels of a world in flux, guardians of the past now turned witness to history unfurling in real time. Their grand facades, once impenetrable, seemed to nod in acknowledgement of the seismic shifts that Rachel had set in motion, shifts echoing outward, sparking change in every corner they touched. "Rachel," Clara began, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled as they walked, "what do you feel when you look back on what we started today?" Rachel paused, allowing her eyes to track the architectural skyline punctuated with stories untold, a horizon etched with lives intersecting, diverging, and colliding against an endless firmament. Her reflection meshed within, an integral part yet distinctly unique, daring to reroute destiny through choice and conviction. "I feel a responsibility, Clara," Rachel replied, her words imbued with the weight of destinies intertwined, held gently within her grasp. "But more than that, I feel hope, not the distant, untouchable kind, but something immediate, alive in the people we reach." She glanced at Clara, her voice weaving with unspoken affirmations. It was a voice resonating through the passageways of time, transcending single moments to need broader canvases of change. They both understood the power contained within speaking truth to power, heart to heart. Their footsteps slowed as they neared a familiar bakery nestled humbly among towering structures, a sanctuary of warmth and light spilling onto the pedestrian avenue. Its fragrance invited weary souls within for rejuvenation, reminiscent of homes both near and departed, found within community's embrace. They stepped inside, greeted not just by the sweet scents of cinnamon and pastry, but by the quiet murmur of heartfelt connections, tiny universes of shared moments, scrapbooking narratives, sought in sprigs of laughter and shared confidences whispered across tables. "Two of the usual?" a warm voice queried from the counter, a young woman with eyes brightened by sincerity and familiarity. She was emblematic of small yet significant victories, those whose roots intertwined within community's fertile ground to embrace sacred acts of togetherness. "Please," Rachel affirmed with a nod, and in that simple exchange carried a legacy of transformation, gathered by hands reaching across divides, refreshed in interactions renewed, where alliances rose irrepressibly, resilient to anarchic designs. They settled at a corner table, their drinks emanating gentle comfort fashioned from shared intentions and kindred spirits. Beyond the glass, night began to deepen, starry watchtowers blinking awake against the cityscape, their celestial gaze offering navigation points for navigating temporal landscapes. "Think about how far we've come, and how many have joined us," Clara mused, stirring her drink with contemplative ease entangled in reverie's embrace. Her thoughts wove threads impressionistic yet detailed, broad strokes of community strengthened, underpinned by poignant notes sung in harmony. Rachel reflected on those whose voices resounded alongside her own, an expansive chorus uplifted by insistent unity, tasted dimly, glimpsed too briefly but cherished for the possibility it heralded into being. Her journey was a spark, one ignited in memory, breaching silences revered long beyond resignation. "So many stories," Rachel echoed, her heart swelling with the realization of their collected potential to redefine understandings. "Together we compose symphonies stretching across divides, spinning receptions of solidarity against which splintering intolerance falls powerless." As the night encroached, enveloping the streets in a tangible softness, the bakery thrummed with the cadence of life, conversations inflecting arcs of light refracted back into shared dreams, unapologetic, illuminated by truth's perennial source. Here blossomed change married to humanity's imperatives, its pathways tracing onward guided by advocates unrelenting. Each patron, each connection and relationship contained echoes of Rachel's victory, Cheyenne's whisper now a gale, bending even the stoutest oaks of indifference into fluid arcs of devotion. This was what invigorated Rachel, not revenge or retribution, but embodiment in fellowship, a fabric sewn with resonant threads unbroken by history's darker narratives. Their drinks finished, the waitress smiled knowingly as Rachel and Clara prepared to leave. leave, her unspoken encouragement and intrinsic reassurance that tomorrow, unseen and veiled, held ample space for continuity matched only by ambition's unfettered hope. Together, Rachel and Clara stepped back into the nocturne, their partnership indelibly woven into the atmosphere surrounding them. They moved onward through a city flowing beneath changes celebrated and mourned, stepping toward a horizon ripe with tomorrow's untraveled avenues. And at that moment, amidst the whisper of passing winds and the quiet strength illuminated by shared steps, Rachel believed not just in her ability to enact change, but in the irrevocable certainty that came with recognizing that she, too, stood among others, unified in their commitment to build and rebuild anew under the watchful stars. The city's night offered both solace and challenge, as Rachel and Clara walked toward a new day, a canvas awaiting their narrative's continuation. Streets that had borne witness to injustice teemed with renewed potential, a potent reminder that each step forward carried echoes of steps once faltering, now resolute. Rachel's thoughts meandered, wandering back to moments where her strength had been kindled from embers of past despair. Memories flowed as an unseen current, guiding her toward realizations only possible after overcoming inherent doubts and limited perceptions. Cheyenne's face shimmered in her thoughts, a reminder of yesterday's loss transmuted into tomorrow's promise. Each journey shapes us, Rachel reflected aloud as they strolled past the illuminated windows, showcasing the simple beauty of everyday life, places where ordinary folk gathered, unaware of the quiet revolutions spinning outside their awareness, yet profoundly impacted. Clara nodded, the rhythm of Rachel's words synchronizing with her own reflections. A life lived in defiance of inertia. She envisioned legal systems reimagined, wielded by those embracing justice, interwoven through lived experience rather than dictated by sterile decree. There is no single path to justice. Only paths we choose to forge, Clara responded, her tone equal parts forceful and tender, much like the law she had dedicated herself to reshaping. It's about building, piece by underappreciated piece, to craft a foundation strong enough to withstand tides yet to come. Their conversation carried them toward an edge of the city, where a river slipped elegantly, its surface scattered by moonlit diamonds, a scene resonant with tranquil urgency. Here, nature whispered against urban hum, each ripple speaking of a journey itself, celestial reflections on a journey yet explored, inviting confidences to be shared under starlit canopy. They paused on the riverbank, observing the serene interplay of water and night, a ballet of mirrored possibilities carried onward by gentle currents. Rachel felt the pull of the past and the push of the future, a tension ripe with creative energy poised to alter trajectory. Cheyenne used to bring me to places like this when I felt lost, Rachel confided, her voice the softest echo of longing tinged with gratitude. Her thoughts intersected histories, silence and whispers carried by time's tendrils, breathing them now into purposeful continuity. He gave you the vision, Clara acknowledged, understanding intuitively the bonds created through shared struggles and dreams unmet. And you, Rachel, have given it voice, a voice that resonates far beyond any courthouse argument. In that moment, under an expanse of transformative sky and the riverside's quiet hush, the vista stretched infinite with potential. Rachel contemplated the cyclic nature of change, sprouting from hardship soil into towering legacies, effortlessly entwined in the fertile hope of those who dared to see. I wish she could see this, Rachel almost whispered, her breath tracing icy patterns against the night air, a legacy unfulfilled, now securing its pact within eternity's gilded halls. Clara placed a reassuring hand on Rachel's shoulder, her expression softening into a smile imbued with reassurance. I think she does, Rachel, she asserted, aligning alongside Rachel not just in profession but in conviction, the illuminating truth, an ambassador to their shared mission. The river flowed, unconcerned by time's constraints, reminding both women that tonight, though singular, was ever a part of larger currents. Currents initiated long before institutions bore witness to Rachel's courage. They mirrored the ripples on the water, a force substantial enough to carve out new lands and destinies, enhanced by belief in justice's reach. As the light waned, enfolding in shadows not of malevolence, but of promise and comfort taken from star-lit assurances, Rachel knew this: her journey, crafted with deliberate steps shaped by losses past, was both common and unique, insulated by the potential cascading from the river's confidently unyielding call, turning back to the city, to the mover's hum, to lives continuing resplendent within intricate narratives externally eternal yet internally cyclical. They walked bathed in moonlight, invigorated by imagination unfurling into open horizons. The river's voice, woven into the midnight tapestry, whispered encouragement to those awake and dreaming. Tomorrow's descendants, uplifted by footsteps, echoing within spaces sculpted by foresight and memory. Rachel and Clara, reflections against the nocturne of possibility, knew the path forward was as infinite and wide as the river flowing beside them. It was a journey unending, and they embraced it with equanimity and fervor, aware of the role they played in shaping the world toward justice transformed, each step an echo daring to reforge the future with grace. As the night drew deeper, Rachel and Clara reached the threshold of a small community center tucked between rows of residential buildings. Its modest exterior belied the vitality within, an incubator of ideas and initiatives bubbling toward transformation, no less significant than the bustling streets they'd traversed. Inside, the atmosphere was electric, a gathering place where conversations wove a tapestry of shared ambition and lived experience. The room was filled with people of all ages, children playing joyfully, elders exchanging stories, and young adults organizing the community's manifold activities, their faces alive with the light of anticipation. Rachel and Clara felt the energy pulsating through the center's vibrant heart. Here, grassroots activation intersected with determined advocacy, each individual playing an indispensable role in the community's narrative. This was not simply about resistance, it was creation, building anew from the fragments left untouched by wider systemic infrahumanity. "Rachel!" a voice called across the warm hues of the room, drawing their gazes toward a group of young activists clustered around a table strewn with charts and plans. The speakers were brimming with excitement, their conviction as infectious as it was inspiring. Rachel approached, her presence a north star in the constellation of dynamic energy. Her calm demeanor contrasted beautifully with the urgency vibrating around, making her an anchor amidst the lively currents of enthusiasm. "We heard what happened today," one of the young women exclaimed, her eyes gleaming with the passion of youth driven by purpose. "It's the kind of victory that renews our resolve around here." Rachel smiled, recognizing in each face a kindred spirit, ready to take up the torch she bore, an emblem of unyielding hope tempered by the wisdom of struggle. "It was a collective effort," she replied, casting a grateful glance at Clara, "and it's proof that each step we take can change the world, even when it feels uphill." Clara joined them at the table, her legal expertise blending seamlessly with the grassroots energy. She began discussing budding plans for future advocacy initiatives. Her insights met with thoughtful nods and eager contributions from the young organizers. The room hummed with a spirit of collaboration, each voice adding to the murmurs of progress weaving through the space. It was a reminder of the potent synergy between lived experience and systemic change, of narratives somehow both individual in nature and universal in impact. Across from Rachel, an elder shared memories of their youth, illustrating battles fought and wisdom gleaned over decades. Their stories were timeless, vibrant threads in the tapestry of justice's long arc, handed down from generation to generation, leaving strands for the future to fortify. Rachel listened intently, understanding the importance of these shared legacies in crafting tomorrow's victories. She saw in them an unwavering commitment to justice's realization, and the inheritance passed down to all who would carry it forward undimmed. As the evening unfolded, Rachel recognized a truth that resonated loudly within the community's pulse. The path she walked, laden with echoes of her sister's voice, was not solitary. It was a path upon which countless others traveled alongside her, bound together in shared pursuit of equity and kindness. Clara, too, observed the energy of renewal coursing through the room, sensing the momentum building up, a wave poised to ripple far beyond tonight's gathering, destined to wash over systems rooted too deeply in past prejudices. "This is where it begins," Clara said quietly to Rachel, her eyes sweeping the room, taking in the burgeoning potential embodied by each person present. "It's the small changes catalyzed here that inspire broader evolution." Rachel nodded, appreciating the wisdom held in Clara's words. She understood that tangible change was not merely monumental. Its inception lay instead in subtle shifts facilitated by conversations, connections, and courage stirred into action every day. The community center represented more than a place of gathering. It was an incubator for future narratives waiting to unfold, a testament to the power each individual wielded. Here, change was tangible, hope flourished, and justice continued to unravel in myriad dimensions. As the night progressed, Rachel and Clara engaged with more community members, exchanging ideas, encouragement, and aspirations. Their shared vision expanded, illuminating untapped potential across the diverse continuum of justice, stretching endlessly beyond. The conversations exchanged were intimate yet expansive, small seeds of promise planted in minds fertile with possibility. Rachel's victory in the courtroom provided momentum, a dawn emerging from darkened skies. Yet it was in these encounters where its true meaning crystallized. By the evening's end, they departed the center with renewed purpose, their steps traced by hope renewed against night's soft embrace. The community, being nurtured within the vivacious heart of shared ambition, blossomed into the city's tapestry to draw strength from newfound vibrancy. Rachel and Clara knew the night was just a beginning, a prelude not only to tales retold, but to a future resilient and resistant to oppression. Shadows could not shutter hearts committed to change, nor could silence halt voices emboldened by shared truth. As they ventured home through quiet streets, a city illuminated by justice conferred, resolved to forge new trajectories, Rachel held on to a single truth. Change, though imperceptible at times, was constant. It coursed beneath the skin of communities, whispered in quiet confidences exchanged in places just like this. Rachel and Clara reveled in the profound, in whispers of progress pervading the ordinary extraordinary, carrying forward histories reimagined through collective understanding. Tonight, amidst stars unwavering above and paths emerging before them, they knew the march continued, bearers of legacy, each step inseparably linked to the new destinies they now crafted. The night's embrace cast a serene mantle over the city as Rachel and Clara made their way home. Their steps echoed softly on the pavement, a rhythmic cadence to the symphony of dreams awakened within the community center. The air was crisp, carrying with it the promise of a new dawn, overshadowed by the ghosts of old injustices, but illuminated by the light of hope kindled by their collective efforts. As they reached the heart of the city, the vibrant hum of nightlife thrived around them. Cafes brimming with laughter, the rhythm of music spilling onto the streets from bustling clubs, and quiet moments, drawn within illuminated windows, where families shared the warmth of companionship. Rachel felt each vibration resonate within her, not as a noise to be ignored, but as a symphony composed of lives interwoven by shared desires and unspoken connections. Each sound, each heartbeat pulsating through the streets told a story, a narrative forged in the crucible of societal transformation. She glanced at Clara, the latter's silhouette etched against glowing storefronts. a testimony to the power of belief crystallized through purpose-driven actions. Clara's footsteps mirrored Rachel's own, weaving intricate patterns across the fabric of justice reimagined. As they paused at a busy intersection, Rachel caught sight of a small group gathered under a nearby awning, their voices rising in an impromptu chorus, a familiar civil rights anthem, resonant with echoes of past struggles, heartbreak, and triumph. The harmonies, layered with raw emotion, reached into Rachel's soul, wrapping her in a mantle of solidarity forged through shared experience. Clara noticed Rachel's absorbed expression, and together they approached the group, captivated by the unity threaded through each note. The singers' faces were illuminated by streetlights, expressions open and earnest, imbued with the determination of angels unsheltered by despair's shadow. "Music has a way of binding us to our truths," Clara observed, her voice joining the melody's refrain, harmonizing with the unifying chords. "It connects hearts, even when words falter." Rachel, moved by the song's transformative power, allowed its essence to flow through her, each lyric carrying whispers of freedom spoken into existence through relentless hope and unwavering courage. The group welcomed them into the circle, their presence adding layers to the harmony that danced effortlessly through the crisp night air. Rachel joined in, her voice adding to the transcendent mixture, each word a tribute to those who had come before and those yet to be. Surrounded by strangers who felt more like companions on a shared journey, Rachel's spirit soared, no longer encumbered by the weight of silent struggles, but elevated through collective resilience. The anthem, an invocation of justice made manifest, bound them all in its embrace, transcending the boundaries that had once sought to confine them. As their voices wove through the night, Rachel felt Cheyenne's presence telegraphed through the song's echo, a whisper carried to every heart open enough to hear. This was the essence of community, the power to create, recreate, and perpetuate justice, not merely in courtrooms but in homes, streets, and shared spaces etched with memory. As the song crescendoed and tapered into silence, the group exchanged glances of understanding, a communion of souls united by the belief that change was not a far-off concept but a lived reality. The energy lingered, an indelible marker of potential sparked through moments both extraordinary in their simplicity and profound in their impact. The group dispersed slowly, the ties between them strengthened by the shared experience. Tighter than before, but just as liberating. Rachel and Clara lingered, savoring the sense of belonging woven through the evening's tapestry. "It's nights like this that remind us why we fight," Clara said softly, her words filled with a quiet resolve as they turned to continue their journey. Rachel nodded, her heart full with the beauty and bravery she had witnessed along every step, and why we keep going, knowing the path is always worth it. Together, they resumed their walk, drawing strength from the music that resonated long after its last notes faded into memory, strength enough to carry them through to whatever lay beyond, tomorrow's rising sun. As they reached their respective homes, Rachel paused at her doorstep, the city silent yet alive around her. She turned her gaze skyward, the stars twinkling in a celestial patchwork, mirroring the voices of hope, justice, and unity, sprinting across the universe's expanse. She whispered a silent thank you, a gratitude reaching upward to Cheyenne, her guiding light in the tapestry of this renewed world woven with resilience and determination. This torchbearer of truth cast upon her sister's memory painted the dawn with enduring luminosity. Inside, as the night's cloak enshrouded the slumbering city, Rachel understood the profound truth of her journey. Justice was never a destination. It was a journey shaped by actions, defined by love, and perpetuated through the collective courage of many, rising unstoppably toward an era renewed by faith, justice restored, and voices unbroken. The next next morning dawned with a soft glow, the city shrouded in the kind of quiet that held within it the promise of burgeoning potential. Rachel awoke with the remnants of last night's harmonies still echoing tenderly in her mind, like the soft footprints of a dream, lingering just beyond the veil of waking. The room was filled with the warm, golden light of morning, each beam a gentle reminder of the new chapters awaiting to be written beyond today's illuminated edges. Refreshed and imbued with renewed purpose, Rachel dressed and made her way to the community center where the previous night's conversations had sown seeds of momentum ripe for nurturing. The air was invigorating as she navigated the familiar streets, her footsteps confident, guided by the silent symphony of lives unfolding around her, each a testament to resilience and resolve. As she arrived, the center buzzed with energy, a microcosm of hopeful activism. Familiar faces greeted her warmly, each with a spirit of enthusiasm that crackled like morning light scattering through the tall windows. Here, within these walls, lay not just dreams but actionable plans propelled by Rachel's courtroom victory, a beacon of progress in a world often overshadowed by the inertia of status quo. Inside, Clara was already in full stride, leading a discussion among the young activists. Their faces glowed with determination, ready to channel the inspiration drawn from yesterday's triumph into tangible initiatives scripted on sheets of paper, minds alight with strategies for change. "Rachel!" Clara hailed as Rachel stepped into the circle, her voice resonant with the undercurrent of transformation tangible in the air. "We were just laying out plans for our next steps. There's a rally scheduled as part of the awareness campaign, and your insights could sharpen our focus immensely." Rachel joined the gathering, absorbing the patchwork of ideas already in motion. Each concept echoed with the weight of lived experiences, carried forth by those who had, in one way or another, brushed against the claws of injustice and emerged with the gritty determination to dismantle its scaffolding. "I'm honored," Rachel began, meeting Clara's eyes with a nod of gratitude. She turned her gaze to the group, whose energy felt electric with possibility. "The rally will be more than just a gathering. It will be a celebration of voices, each one a cornerstone against ignorance." Her words, though deceptively simple, struck a chord in the activists assembled. In their expression lay an unflinching commitment, unmarred by cynicism, youthful vigor feeding into the necessity for enduring justice. One of the youngest among them, a teenager named Jordan, leaned forward. His face bore the fierce determination unique to someone who'd tasted injustice early and committed himself to reshaping his world despite it. "We've also organized workshops," he added, "designed to educate and empower those new to the movement. We need to ensure this isn't just a moment but a sustained push for change." His passion was infectious, and the circle grew tighter around their shared mission, civic engagement, interwoven with personal stories, crafting a woven narrative as real in its promise as tomorrow's sunrise. Rachel appreciated the synergy birthed from their gathering, small ripples poised to merge into a flowing current, carrying collective voices beyond the grasps of apathy. Their tenacity meshed impalpably with her sister's memory, a symbiosis spinning justice through concerted effort. "Education is the foundation," Rachel noted, her voice confident, threading resonance through the eager camaraderie. "It's the realization that knowledge equips us to break down barriers long undisturbed, fostering dialogues where silence loomed before." Clara underscored the imperatives with legal perspectives, shifting complex frameworks into accessible wisdom. "Let's ensure the laws are shaped not just by cases won, but by the evolution of understanding, a dialogue toyed by not those in power, but everyone who believes in fair justice." The hours gleamed with anticipation as they mapped strategies, each plan seeded within the fertile soil nurtured by solidarity. They brainstormed tirelessly, ideas and words flowing freely, like tributaries converging into a mighty river poised to carve new channels through time-worn obstacles. As the morning gave way to noon, Rachel stood back, observing the future unfolding inside this confluence. A testament to the legacy Cheyenne's voice imparted, threaded through the lives of those gathered amidst the mosaic of determination. The momentum gathered its own strength, complexity, and dimension, an engine driven by the passion for relentless reformation. This was more than a rally or workshop. It was the echo of transcendence calling for storytellers of justice, willing to wield narratives with intention. Rachel, filled with the warmth of her surroundings, understood this was only the beginning. The spirit within the community center was enduring, sustained by the courage instilled within each participant. The promise continuing, penned by hands willing to script tomorrows, obscured by yesterday's shadows. The day wore on, and as they prepared to part, Rachel felt the pulse of forthcoming movement vibrating in every heartbeat. Each plan laid before them today was a step toward justice, interwoven into everyday lives, birthing transformation beyond mere words. As she left the center, her heart resonated with the faith shared by Clara and every young mind she encountered. Rachel carried with her a luminescent truth, steadied by belief in action's ripple, confident their endeavors would sail beyond current horizons. This journey, shaped within an ethos of collaborative unity, was both singular and infinitely connected, a voice rising against silence, charting life toward chapters redefined by justice, reaching forward, encouraged by a shared legacy, embraced by the constancy of unwavering hope. The crescendo of energy that had surrounded Rachel at the community center carried her throughout the day. Each step she took felt infused with determination, as if the very pavement beneath her feet was pushing her forward, whispering the promises of change with every contact. This relentless momentum continued to propel her toward the heart of the city, where she knew another chapter awaited to unfold. As the afternoon sun angled itself lower in the sky, casting long golden trails down the avenue, Rachel approached a location intimately familiar to her, an unassuming office tucked away amid bustling cafes and storefronts. The building, while modest, held the potential for transformation, its walls absorbing conversations intent on rewriting the narratives cultivated by injustice's persistence. Rachel entered the office, the door ringing with the melodious chime that announced her arrival. Inside, the space was abuzz with the sounds of concentrated effort, phones ringing, the gentle clatter of keyboards, and the low murmur of exchanges that hummed like the vibrato of change resonating through a musical piece. She was greeted warmly by Denise, a longtime friend and colleague who had joined her in many fights for justice. Denise's demeanor, as always, exuded a calm intensity that settled into the fabric of her work and commitment to the cause. "Rachel," Denise called out, breaking into a smile that reached her eyes. "The rally's impact has grown faster than we anticipated. I have updates on several key partnerships we've been courting, and it looks promising." Rachel returned the smile, feeling the familiar weight of allyship wrap around her like a comforting embrace. "That's excellent news, Denise," she replied, absorbing the surrounding vigor and adding it to her well of motivation. Together, they sat at a communal table, cluttered with flyers, outreach materials, and laptops displaying informative graphics that provided data-driven proof of systemic inequalities. Here, facts were wielded as tools, their strength lying not just in their ability to highlight discrepancies, but in their power to point toward informed solutions. "The local university has expressed interest in collaborating," Denise reported, her voice steady and full of encouragement. "They want to host forums and workshops as part of extending civic engagement within their student body." This update was heartening, reaffirming Rachel's belief that change needed not only spontaneous voices, but institutional support that could sow seeds of transformation across systems traditionally resistant to evolution. And, Denise added, leaning slightly forward, the excitement palpable, there are discussions about launching educational initiatives aimed at underserved communities. They're looking at incorporating mentorship programs, internships, and community projects. A thrill coursed through Rachel, her spirit buoyed by the possibilities now surfacing from the depths of dedicated effort. Each new step represented an opening, an opportunity to forge connections that haven't previously existed, weaving the tapestry of community and reform closer together. "That's exactly what we need," Rachel affirmed, her conviction lending power to her words. "Engagement must start young, equipping minds with the foresight framed by equity and opportunity." Their conversation was interrupted briefly as Weldon, another colleague deeply involved in grassroots mobilization, joined them at the table. His presence carried with it a quiet resolve that synchronously aligned with the initiative's purpose. "I just came from a meeting with local business leaders," Weldon began, his voice steady like the undercurrent of a mighty river. "They're thinking about supporting the fundraiser with sponsorships, and in exchange they want to be included in workshops about workplace inclusivity and diversity training." Rachel's heart swelled with the notion that their movement was capturing the attention of those traditionally harder to engage. She saw pathways opening, how the integration of differing sectors translated into a reshaping of societal fundamentals. "That's an incredibly positive direction," Rachel said, exchanging looks of solidarity with Denise and Weldon. Their shared insight gestured toward a future where corporate involvement aligned with conscious responsibility, one word spoken into circles of impact, amplifying justice across divides. As the sun deepened its descent toward the horizon, the room's flurry of activity danced to this rhythm. Each interaction, each update, forging stronger connections, poised to challenge ingrained injustices, not with confrontation, but with education and inclusivity. Rachel's optimism was infectious, permeating the confines of the office, spilling into the realms beyond brick and mortar. The groundwork laid today beckoned with promises of a better tomorrow, its roots intertwining with the collective hands willing to break complacency's grip. Together, as the work continued into the evening, they envisioned the rally not as an endpoint, but as a milestone, a touchstone, where diverse narratives converged to highlight shared promise. Within these walls, their efforts coalesced, formidable agents preparing to embark into myriad communities. To Rachel, the day epitomized the enduring nature of progress birthed from hope. Behind every strategic plan, alliance formed and partnership nurtured, lay stories yearning for light. Change lingered, perpetually expectant, each second an undulating beat complementing the forward march to justice. As Rachel departed the office, she was filled with the warmth of camaraderie. Her journey toward evening reflected the same hopeful glow as the setting sun, a celestial reminder that darkness yielded inevitably to light, inspired by the unyielding ascent of those daring to reach skyward. Through it all, Rachel carried Cheyenne's essence as a gentle whisper beneath the wind curling past her, carrying encouragement and love forward, a legacy entwined with renewal, coated in a luminous mantle formed through lasting unity. The vibrant momentum from the day's efforts carried Rachel into the evening, infusing her steps with a sense of purpose as she made her way to a gathering of allies and longtime supporters. This meeting was less formal than the earlier sessions, a chance to connect with kindred spirits drawn together by a shared commitment to reshaping the world through justice and understanding. The venue was a cozy local cafe that doubled as a community nexus, a haven where creativity met activism and ideas flowed as freely as the locally roasted coffee. As Rachel approached, the soft glow of ambient light spilled onto the sidewalk, a gentle lure inviting passers-by into the warmth within. Inside, the atmosphere was abuzz with conversation, an ensemble of voices articulating visions of hope and accountability over the comforting clatter of cups and saucers. The scent of freshly brewed espresso intermingled with laughter and earnest dialogue, creating an intoxicating mix of inspiration and camaraderie. Rachel spotted a familiar face among the tables, Donovan, an artist whose work had long advocated for social justice, using paintbrush and canvas to challenge perceptions and dissolve the barriers of ignorance. His presence added a vibrant energy to the room, a reminder of the myriad ways in which allies could contribute to the cause. "Rachel," Donovan called out warmly, his voice infused with the vivacity that characterized his artistic endeavors. He gestured for her to join the group gathered around a large wooden table that bore marks of countless discussions layered through the years. Rachel found her place among them, greeted by friends old and new, each one contributing their passion and expertise to the mosaic of change they were collectively building. Here was a tapestry unraveled through difference, yet woven together by the threads of unified intent. As the discussions unfurled, Donovan leaned in, his gaze earnest beneath the brim of his hat. Your victory has sparked more than just conversation. It's created a space for artists and activists to come together to imagine and create new narratives, he shared, his words a testament to the power of art intertwined with advocacy. Rachel nodded, acknowledging the potency of emerging dialogues. Art reflects society's conscience, she replied, her voice steady with the certainty of shared belief. When wielded with purpose, it becomes a catalyst, urging society to confront itself. A chorus of agreement rippled through the table, affirmations echoing the urgent need to transform vision into tangible action across disciplines. The evening was alive with the alchemy of collaboration, each participant an essential ingredient in the recipe for enduring change. Nearby, a young musician named Aisha began playing a gentle melody on her guitar, the notes weaving seamlessly through the air like threads of an unseen tapestry, connecting every soul present. The music was soulful, its simplicity profound, a soothing balm reminiscent of shared struggle and shared joy. We're planning a cultural festival, Donovan announced, excitement infusing his voice. A celebration of voices from every walk, expressed through art, music, poetry. It's about showcasing resilience and resistance as collective strengths. The proposal was met with enthusiasm, metered by the knowledge that such events held the capacity to break ground where traditional methods often faltered. Rachel could see the vision forming, an intricate dance of art and advocacy bringing forth a symphony resonant with hope. Across the table, Chloe, a poet whose verses cut through apathy like a well-honed blade, chimed in. This festival could be more than an event, it could be a declaration, she asserted, her words igniting sparks of imagination among them. Rachel felt the swell of potential unfold within the room, echoing the dreams exchanged, articulated, and refined through commitment etched in collective hearts. Each idea felt tangible, crafted from the essence of their shared journey. As the evening deepened, Rachel shared stories of Cheyenne, whose memory bridged the distance between loss and action, spurring courage and invoking a generational call for empathy steeled by defiance. Cheyenne's legacy infused Rachel's journey with steadfast conviction, a north star shining brightly on paths rewritten by love. Cheyenne would have been proud of what we're doing here, Rachel smiled softly, casting warmth toward friends who now felt like family. Her voice continues to inspire everything I've ever fought for. The space collectively breathed in her sentiments, absorbing the resilience and respect wrapped around the stories of perseverance born through love's unwavering gaze. The conversations wove tighter, a close-knit fabric effortlessly resisting fragmentations imposed by ignorance and fear. As the gathering drew to a close, the group solidified plans for the festival, each person leaving with responsibilities embraced as stepping stones leading toward a future founded on promised change. They parted with affirmations of support, swathed in the knowledge that their routes converged on the common ground of purpose. Rachel lingered a moment longer as the cafe embraced the silence left behind, a sanctuary kindled by echoes of laughter and trust committed to action. Her heart felt full, the collective faith shared among allies laying groundwork more solid than any courtroom floor. This was a journey bound not just within individual acts, but in rituals of shared experience, threads spun into enduring tales sweeping across histories not yet defined. As Rachel stepped back onto the path home, the stars above winked knowingly, lighting her way with wisdom songs and dream-laced light carrying her toward tomorrow. Tonight's gathering had been more than a meeting. It was a testament to the relentless collaboration essential for weaving justice's fabric anew. Each narrative enriched the legacy left by Cheyenne, affirming truths ignited by Rachel's triumphant spirit, fueled by authenticity and connection, a lantern guiding generations yet to come. And so Rachel continued her journey, illuminated by aspiration's gentle glow, walking paths inscribed by those unafraid to challenge and reimagine stories imbued with justice, alive and thriving, their rhythm marking life's heartbeat interlaced with boundless possibility. The crisp air of the morning after the cafe gathering kissed Rachel's cheeks as she stepped onto her porch, the city softly stirring awake around her. She felt renewed, riding the momentum of the previous night's symphony of shared resolve, an echo reverberating through her core. Today marked another step in an ongoing journey, a journey vested in the transformative power of collective voices rising against the silence of complacency. As she walked toward the local public radio station, Rachel reflected on the stories shared during her time at the community center and the cafe. These stories, each a narrative of resilience, wove like a quilt across her thoughts, each stitch representing the efforts of individuals committed to igniting change, to illuminating the shadows that had obscured ideas now emerging with clarity. The station was a hub of activity, alive with the urgency to report stories that mattered, illuminating voices often diminished by the roar of mainstream narratives. Here, authenticity breathed, unhindered by the cacophony of societal white noise. Greeted warmly at the entrance by Marcy, the station manager and a longtime advocate for change, Rachel was ushered inside. Marcy's eyes, bright with the spark of shared ambition, embodied the station's ethos, stories delivered with integrity, infused with purpose. "Rachel, your story has touched so many," Marcy began, steering them toward the studio, "and we want to amplify it further. The ripples you've started are reaching places we've struggled to access with other programs." Rachel nodded, absorbing the weight of Marcy's words. Here, within the heart of broadcast media, she realized her narrative had the potential not just to inspire, but to educate, empowering listeners from all walks of life to reimagine their roles in the grand tapestry of justice. Inside the studio, the ambient hum was punctuated by the sound of voices preparing for the morning broadcast, a blend of professionals and volunteers, united by the mission to speak truth authentically, unconstrained by the limitations imposed by more commercialized networks. Rachel settled into a chair, the headphones resting comfortably over her ears. The studio's quiet thrum enveloped her, offering a sense of belonging, an environment fueled by the belief that each voice, each story, held immeasurable power to dismantle entrenched ideologies and cultivate understanding. The producer signaled her with a gentle nod, and with that, Rachel leaned into the microphone, her voice filling the silent space, a conduit for renewal, hope, and ultimately a call to action, echoing beyond these acoustically treated walls. "Good morning, everyone," Rachel began, her tone resonant with the warmth of deep-seated conviction. "Today I'd like to share a story, a journey, really, about the possibilities that emerge when we choose to listen, to engage, and to embrace discomfort as the harbinger of growth." The words flowed seamlessly, each syllable buoyed by the experiences shared in community spaces, transformed by trust and understanding. As Rachel recounted the victory in the courtroom and the steps that followed, her story twined through listeners' minds, awakening them to the spectrum of change birthed through shared stories and collaborative efforts. She spoke of Cheyenne, her sister's memory an inextinguishable flame lighting paths once believed cumbersome with darkness. In Rachel's voice, Cheyenne lived on, now part of an enduring legacy poised to inspire generations untethered by prejudice's binds. "Our work extends beyond courtrooms and protest lines," Rachel continued, weaving clarity into the narrative fabric. "It's present in the conversations we have around our kitchen tables, the art we create, the communities we nurture. It's about recognizing that silence is complicity, and our voices, though they may feel small, can join forces to create profound echoes across time." Listeners, positioned across the city and beyond, felt the resonance of her words, the momentum carrying them forth like river currents, changing landscapes one dialogue at a time. Rachel's voice imbued airwaves with empowerment, a catalyst inviting all to move beyond passive existence to active participants in crafting a compassionate world. The segment concluded not with a plea but an invitation, an open door leading toward pathways brimming with collective responsibility and renewed aspirations. Rachel had, through narrative, created a mirror reflecting possibilities infinite in scope, yet grounded in tangible action. As she emerged from the studio, the weight of her commitment felt less solitary, buoyed by the shared journey now enveloping others in its embrace. Rachel understood deeply that transformations began with questions, tiny seeds planted within minds willing to engage, to challenge long-held assumptions, and to propel society forward. Marcy accompanied her back toward the light-drenched entrance, where the city was now fully awake, each sound a note in the symphony of collective life, a reminder that justice's tempo was eternally set by those who dared to dream beyond confine. "Thank you, Rachel," Marcy said, her hand resting softly on Rachel's arm. "Your voice has created a space for so many others. I know that together we're building something resilient." Rachel smiled, the gratitude evident in her eyes. "We are," she affirmed, knowing that with each step forward, the journey they embarked upon expanded further into the vast horizon waiting to be charted by hope and humanity. Returning to the bustling streets, Rachel carried with her the burgeoning promise symbolized not by grand gestures, but by collective whispers, rising. As each person engaged with her story, integrating insights into their own lives, the justice movement took on new dimensions, an unyielding constant, unfurling toward a future vibrant with possibility. The melody of Rachel's morning on the radio had set the stage for what promised to be a pivotal day. Her footsteps fell into rhythm with the city's heartbeat as she made her way to the next destination, a school where she'd been invited to speak with students about their power to impact change. Inside the school's walls, the hallways were alive with the vibrant energy of youth, each student a spark of curiosity, eager to ignite. The din of laughter and conversation resonated warmly, reminiscent of a symphony tuning up for a grand performance. Here, potential abounded, electric and palpable, offering a perspective unclouded by the weariness of cynicism. Rachel was met by Ms. Thompson, a passionate educator committed to inspiring the next generation to not only learn from the past, but to write their own futures with empathy and commitment. Her eyes were alight with excitement as she led Rachel to the auditorium, where rows of chairs faced a stage set for discourse. "Thank you for coming, Rachel," Ms. Thompson said with earnest sincerity. "Your story is a beacon of hope for many of our students. It provides them with a concrete example of the difference an individual can make." Rachel smiled, her heart warmed by the knowledge that her journey was being shared in such a dynamic space, fertile soil for the seeds of future activism. "I'm honored to be here, and hopefully I can help kindle that flame of change within them." Entering the auditorium, Rachel was greeted by the anticipatory hum of youthful engagement. The students, ranging in age and background, exuded a collective eagerness, a readiness to absorb and then transform what they learned into fuel for their own ventures. Taking the stage, Rachel surveyed the sea of faces, gazing up at her, their eyes wide with the expectation of revelation. She recognized in them a reflection of her own youthful aspirations, a credence in their potential to shape the world from the embers of today's struggles. "Good morning, everyone," Rachel began, her voice resonating across the room with a harmonious blend of authority and approachability. "I'm here today not just to share my story, but to highlight the extraordinary power you each hold." Her words wove a narrative that bridged her personal experiences with broader societal aspirations. She detailed her journey thus far, every triumph and setback underscored by the enduring belief in change, driven by persistent effort and heartfelt advocacy. Rachel spoke candidly about Cheyenne, intertwining her sister's enduring legacy with the students' potential to alter their communities for the better. Cheyenne's memory had become a North Star that guided Rachel toward justice, a legacy embodied within every action Rachel took to uplift voices stifled by systemic indifference. When we recognize the impact we can have, both individually and collectively, our voices become instruments in harmony, crafting a narrative that resonates far beyond ourselves, she emphasized, eyes shimmering with conviction. Your dreams and your actions carry the power to shift paradigms, to build pathways toward a just world. The students listened attentively, absorbing insights that spiraled through their consciousness, an invitation to envision lives marked not by complacency, but by active participation in the stories shaping their environment. Hands shot up as she concluded, eager to engage in dialogue sparked by Rachel's narrative, a testament to their readiness to embrace more courageous avenues of reflection and action. Rachel welcomed each question with openness, her responses infused with encouragement and guidance designed to cultivate confidence in their abilities. One student, sharing Rachel's background and a similar determination, stood and asked, "How do you keep moving forward when the obstacles feel overwhelming?" Rachel paused, considering the depth of experience contained in that simple inquiry, and replied, "By remembering who you're fighting for, by understanding that while the journey is long and sometimes daunting, each step taken forward has the potential to light another's path." Their faces illuminated by renewed determination, the students found in Rachel's story an affirmation of their power, a mirror reflecting their capacity to demand more from the world, to press against the boundaries imposed by inertia and fear. After the session concluded, many of the students lingered, their faces alight with inspiration and ideas incited by Rachel's visit. Each conversation held the promise of burgeoning activism, fertilizing the soil of their growing consciousness with the intention carried by those before them. As Rachel and Ms. Thompson walked toward the school's exit, their conversation punctuated by the echoes of youthful enthusiasm, Rachel knew her message had left an indelible impression. These students would carry forward the torch she and others had kindled, their voices joining the vast symphony of change climbing toward the heavens. Back out in the sunlight, Rachel felt the warmth of possibility touch her soul. Hope flickered vibrantly in those interactions, validating her belief in the steadfast impact individuals could achieve when united by a common cause. As she stepped forward, the city spread out before her like an endless expanse of opportunities waiting to be explored, journeys meant to be embraced. Rachel carried with her the energy of future generations, dreamers poised not merely to witness change, but to author it in strokes powerful enough to reverberate through history. As Rachel continued her journey from the school, she could feel the spirit of the students propelling her forward, their questions and hopes still echoing in her mind. Every encounter planted deeper roots in her resolve, reminding her that the fight for justice was a shared odyssey, undertaken not alone, but together with countless others, illuminated by their convictions. The next stop on Rachel's itinerary was an unlikely but significant one. The precinct where Sergeant Cranston still served in some capacity, although his days of unchecked authority were long over. News of Rachel's courtroom victory and the consequent systemic revelations had resonated here in unexpected ways. Change, subtle yet present, had begun to weave through the corridors that had once perpetuated silence and ignorance. It was here that Rachel hoped for an audience with Cranston, not as an adversary, but as a catalyst for dialogue. There remained work to be done in ensuring that what started as an isolated incident became a beacon for broader transformation. Stepping through the doors of the precinct, Rachel felt a palpable tension, an unspoken acknowledgement of the histories and hierarchies re-examined in light of recent events. The lobby buzzed with the quiet activity typical of such spaces, the rustle of paperwork, muffled conversations, and the occasional ring of telephones. Rachel approached the front desk, her presence noted immediately by the officer stationed there. Recognition flickered across his face, a reminder of the catalytic moments that had brought change rippling through these walls. "I'm here to see Sergeant Cranston," Rachel stated, her voice measured yet firm, anticipating the surprised reaction her request might elicit. After a pause that seemed to stretch, the officer nodded, signaling for her to follow. As they wound through the precinct's maze of hallways, Rachel observed the subtle shifts within posters promoting diversity and participation, dotting walls that until recently had perpetuated a monolithic vision of authority. Cranston awaited her in a small, unadorned office located at the precinct's edge, a space that mirrored both reflection and retreat. He rose as she entered, his demeanor notably different, humbled, thoughtful, perhaps even apprehensive. Gone was the air of invincibility that had once shrouded him. What remained was a man navigating the aftermath of realization. "Rachel," Cranston greeted her with a nod, the formality tinged with something akin to respect, acknowledging the role she had played in upending entrenched norms. "Sergeant Cranston," Rachel returned, her eyes meeting his with a gaze both challenging and compassionate. They sat across from one another, the room silent, yet brimming with unspoken realities and potential for understanding. Here, in this understated setting, lay an opportunity, a chance to bridge gaps not only of profession but of humanity, to chart paths previously obscured by positions of power and submission. "Why did you ask to meet?" Cranston inquired, his voice laced with genuine curiosity, the timbre softened by the journey inward he had begun. Rachel considered her response carefully, cognizant of the desire to foster dialogue rather than conflict. "I wanted to understand," she answered, "to ensure that what happened was not just a reaction to one instance, but a foundation we can build upon." Cranston listened intently, absorbing the layers of Rachel's intentions. He was a man confronted by the accountability that followed action, the newfound burden of guilt, interwoven with the awareness between wrong and right, and how easily one can slip into the other when unchecked. "Jewel, I've thought a lot about that day," he admitted, his words steady, "about the system I was part of and the harm I'd caused without realizing it. Hale, you showed me a facet of the justice system many of us ignored." Rachel nodded, each admission a thread bridging understanding, an acknowledgement of fallibility in an institution moving toward reform. "It's a shared responsibility," she said, her voice carrying the weight of collective effort. "Our aim should be to create a system that truly supports and protects, a blend of accountability and understanding." Cranston shifted in his seat, a reflective calm enveloping him. He was a man at the crossroads, between past actions and future promises, reborn in the light of integrity demanding expression. At least it was working. After a second, Cranston decided to flip the screen and couch the scene in a "you've started a dialogue, here and in the community." Cranston acknowledged, hints of respect underpinning his voice. "And it's opened my eyes to possibilities I hadn't considered. Maybe this moment, for all it's brought, is worth it for what we can achieve." In those reflective moments, Rachel understood the profound shift within Cranston. That remorse, when paired with genuine transformation, held the capacity to forge a new beginning. This wasn't absolution through forgiveness, but an invitation to walk the path of reclamation and mutual growth. "We've all a long way to go," Rachel affirmed, the conversation a testimony to the strides requiring concerted effort. "But if we're committed to change, truly committed, then we have the capacity to create an environment where justice isn't just spoken, but lived." As their conversation wove its intricate narrative, Rachel perceived within Cranston the potential for allyship, born not of necessity but of a resoundingly deep understanding of shared humanity. When she finally took her leave, the air between them was charged not with tension but with promise, a recognition of the journeys yet unfinished and the steps yet to take. Rachel walked out of the precinct, her heart buoyed by the knowledge that even here, in a place steeped in challenges, change had begun to root. Her path forward was lit by the integrity and hope cultivated in that modest office, a journey bolstered by the belief that transformation, though slow and fraught fraught with setbacks, could eventually yield a tapestry of understanding and equity. The cityscape unfolded before her once more, alive with whispers of renewal and a testament to justice reach, as far as the heart dared to carry and as deep as truth could promise to hold. The sun hung high as Rachel left the precinct, filtering through clouds that seemed to dance with possibilities. Each step she took felt like a reaffirmation of her resolve, the earlier conversation with Cranston having opened unexpected channels of thought and reconciliation. The streets buzzed with their usual rhythm, a backdrop to the introspection simmering within her. Rachel's next destination was the bustling downtown community hub, a vibrant epicenter of ideas and collaboration where local leaders, activists, and citizens often gathered to discuss transformative initiatives and social change strategies. The hub had become a second home to her, a place where voices harmonized through purpose and creativity wove its tapestry of potential. Upon entering, Rachel was greeted by a lively scene. Folk art adorned the walls, and the air was thick with the aroma of coffee brewing alongside earnest discussions. Here was a convergence of perspectives, a blended symphony composed of individuals from all walks, united in their commitment to fostering change. She made her way through the throng to a central table where key members of the upcoming rally's organizing team convened. The rally, beyond a single event, had evolved into an opportunity for intersectional dialogue, an amalgam of experiences crystallized into a blueprint for unity. "Rachel," called out Maya, one of the lead coordinators, her enthusiasm radiating warmth as she waved Rachel over. "We're just reviewing the final details and could definitely use your insight." Rachel settled into a chair, the energy of the table infectious, buzzing with anticipation and determination. Each member brought a unique essence, a merging of roles to create a tableau of inclusion. From logistical planning to creative programming, the rally awaited its moment to unfold. As Rachel surveyed the plan, charted intricately with careful thought, she felt pride in this collective endeavor. The rally would feature voices highlighting the narrative of resilience and championing social justice. Speakers, artists, educators, each with a story to impart. "This isn't just about raising awareness," Rachel remarked, her voice calm yet resolute. "It's about crafting a shared vision where equity isn't a distant aspiration but a lived reality. We're here to amplify that message." A murmur of assent traveled around the table, the echoes of agreement reinforcing their unified purpose. And it was not just about the rally itself, it was about what followed: educational initiatives, policy discussions, and grassroots engagements designed to sustain momentum long after the event concluded. The team delved into the specifics, organizing workshops alongside the main event, securing locations designed to facilitate inclusivity, and harnessing social media as a catalyst for viral engagement. It was these detailed strategies that formed the scaffolding on which their aspirations would stand. Jaden, a young activist whose candid honesty belied his years, chimed in. "We've got a spot for a youth panel, and I think it would be powerful to see them share their expectations for the future, the world they want to inherit." Rachel nodded, understanding the power of youth voices to reshape landscapes. There was something uniquely transformative about watching those who would inherit tomorrow stake their claim on it today, speaking truths that demanded recognition. As discussions unfolded, Rachel offered her perspective on ways to include diverse voices, ensuring representation wasn't just a token gesture, but a sincere commitment to inclusive advocacy. The plans gained nuance, a testament to the depth and diligence of the individuals at the table. Amidst the flurry of activity, one of the volunteers passed around flyers and promotional materials, exquisitely crafted to capture the essence of their burgeoning movement. Rachel could see it, a tapestry of color and words, each thread inviting others into the narrative built not on division, but on common goals and shared humanity. Throughout the afternoon, preparations solidified. The excitement was palpable, threaded tightly into conversations that twisted around logistics and inspiration alike. Each contributor left a piece of themselves within the plans, a signature of their dedication inscribed within the collective vision. As the meeting concluded, lingering conversations carried on, an impromptu networking session between kindred spirits bound by dreams of justice. The community hub transformed into a shelter for ideas in motion, a refuge alive with the promise of cascading change. Rachel departed with a sense of purpose, reaffirmed by the vibrant tapestry emerging from these connections. Each farewell exchanged was imbued with an unspoken promise, a vow to co-create a future where justice was not an echo, but a symphony. As she stepped back onto the street, graced by the cooling whisper of dusk, Rachel felt the city embrace her once more. The fabric of its life vibrated with the potential they'd crafted through vision and intent, their determination unyielding even in the face of uncertainty. Her journey home was filled with reflections on the day's achievements, vignettes of progress lined with integrity and driven by the collective wisdom of those who dared to demand more. Rachel knew that this tapestry of activism, sewn with the diligent hands of her peers, would ripple beyond the horizon, altering the landscape one thread at a time. And as evening descended gently upon the city, Rachel found solace in the balance of transformation. Each step she took infused with the clarity and resilience essential to sustaining the journey they embarked upon together. Hearts, synchronized to the rhythm of their shared march toward justice, awakened. The evening air was crisp as Rachel made her way back to her apartment, her mind alive with the swirl of collaborative energy experienced at the community hub. Each interaction, plan, and shared vision fortified her resolve, strengthening the foundation upon which she and countless others were building a future steeped in justice and inclusion. Inside her apartment, she took a moment to relish the quiet comfort of familiarity, a sanctuary where she could unpack the day's events and reflect on the journey she continued to navigate. The walls, adorned with reminders of her activism and personal victories, stood as silent allies, bearing witness to every step she had taken in pursuit of justice and equality. Settling into a chair by the window, Rachel let her thoughts drift back to the day's conversations, each one a stitch in the intricate tapestry of change they were weaving together. She could still sense the vibrant connectivity from the community hub, the tapestry growing more vivid with each thread added by those united in purpose. As her gaze wandered to the cityscape outside, she recognized the dynamic interplay of light and shadow as a metaphor for their efforts. Change, like the gentle glow of streetlights illuminating darkened paths, required both persistence and perspective to braid the elements of challenge, hope, and possibility. The midnight sky stretched vast above her, stars glimmering like silent beacons of continuity. They delineated the celestial narrative, extended beyond earthly bounds, a reflection of their commitment to stretching the boundaries of justice until learning shattered the chains of ignorance. Rachel felt a kinship with those distant lights, a shared connection with others who traversed their own journeys through the night. Breaking her reverie, Rachel turned to her laptop, a digital portal to the world beyond her immediate surroundings. It was in this sphere that partnerships were nurtured, bridges built across distance by those driven by mutual aspirations and shared stories. She glanced through her emails, updates from various allies and initiatives reinforcing the pulse of activity she felt coursing through the movement. Plans for the rally were advancing swiftly, with community members stepping forward to contribute their skills and resources. Activists, educators, artists, each participating in nurturing the vibrant tapestry coming together. Among the messages was one from an old friend, Layla, spirited and tenacious in equal measure. Layla was organizing a virtual panel discussion on systemic racism's nuances within communities, a crucial dialogue encouraged by Rachel's story. Reading Layla's message, Rachel felt the string of memory tighten like an anchor within a turbulent sea. Their paths had often crossed in times of turmoil and triumph, moments marked by Layla's tireless advocacy and unyielding drive to bring narratives of empowerment and empathy to the forefront. Rachel's response was swift and enthusiastic, thanking Layla for her continued efforts and confirming her participation in the panel. Together, they had created a space in which differences were embraced and voices empowered. Audiences offered an ear to the truths oft diminished by louder, divisive rhetoric. Returning her focus to the computer, Rachel drafted a message to the Community Hub team, outlining potential guests and topics for future inclusivity workshops. workshops, a call to action for educators and reformists alike. Her words were a declaration of intent, underscored by the foundation of equity laid in today's meetings. As she considered the email content, Rachel paused to reflect on the expanding circle of those committed to the movement, a vivid network that stretched across disciplines and demographics, interlaced by the understanding that change was a shared journey requiring collective effort. The city's nightscape unfurled into a symphony of muted colors, touching the ordinary with the extraordinary, a luminous stretch cradling resilience as it reached toward dawn. Rachel closed her laptop, her mind electrified with the ebb and flow of possibilities, new stories striving to be written across uncharted territories beckoning exploration. Rachel spent the remainder of the night sifting through notes and planning for tomorrow's objectives, a mental rehearsal underscoring her preparedness for conversations yet to unfold, those filled with the power to inject transformation into systems long plagued by inertia and indifference. Even as the clock signaled the encroachment of time's passage, Rachel felt unyielding in her dedication, the foundation of certainty blooming in her heart. With each new day and endeavor, her commitment was steadfast, held aloft by allies and strangers who believed not just in ideals, but their implementation. The world beyond remained enigmatic and vast. As Rachel settled into her bed, the whisper of inspiration soothing her weary thoughts. The stars, constant companions throughout the city's vigil, remained steadfast as another night passed, a tender lullaby invoking peace and anticipation alike. As she drifted into an embrace of dreams, Rachel understood that upon waking, there would be more work to do. The path of justice unfurled ceaselessly, guided by the intensity of shared intent and nurtured by the empathy of those determined to light the way. As the moon wove her silver strands into the tapestry of the night, it was clear that Rachel's journey was a mosaic, each piece reflecting the facets of equity and forging a destiny born of luminous courage. With that thought, she surrendered to sleep, wrapped in the promise of a dawn ripe with opportunity. Rachel awoke to the gentle insistence of morning light filtering through the curtains, casting soft shadows on the walls like whispers from the day yet to unfold. The city murmured to life beyond her window, its symphony of sounds offering a prelude to her thoughts. As she readied herself for the tasks ahead, today held the promise of continuation, a rhythmic step in the inexorable march toward progress. Her morning began with a habitual routine, a grounding process that allowed her to channel energy and clarity from within. As sunlight flooded the room, washing over mementos of her journey, Rachel found solace in the stillness, a moment to brace herself for the myriad faces, voices, and narratives awaiting her presence. The rally was now on the horizon, a crescendo of planned dedication and spontaneous activism converging into a powerful expression of solidarity. It served as a beacon, inviting the world to witness the myriad voices refusing to be silenced, asserting their presence as anchors of meaning and beacons of hope. Arriving at the community hub, Rachel found the environment alive with the frenetic energy of final preparations. The buzz of commitment hung thick in the air as dedicated volunteers and organizers melded their efforts, ensuring every precise detail contributed to the event's success. She moved from team to team, casting her guidance and appreciation like seeds sown into fertile ground, a touchstone of gratitude lending strength to those channeling their fervor into the actions of today. Amidst the vibrant pace of coordination, Rachel paused to observe the intricate web woven through conversations and tasks, each act a brushstroke in the fluid masterpiece swirling into form. It was the canvas upon which dreams coalesced into reality, a demonstration that Mounts followed through collective perseverance. As the time for the rally drew near, Rachel felt the familiar tug of adrenaline, a spark propelling her through forgotten inhibitions and into the embrace of immediacy. This was action incarnate, forged through months of advocacy and rallies within hearts committed to justice's clarion call. The open expanse of the park where the rally would descend thrummed with anticipation, a living organism fueled by the gathering tide of participants. Banners and signs fluttered like songs in the wind, each bearing declarations unbound by territory and allegiance. Rachel took her place among the chorus, the stage set as an offering to voices amassing under its banner. Once a stage for silence, this platform vibrated with the symphonic assembly of those determined to effect change. Attendees intermingled, an ensemble of humanity united in vision and resolve, their motivations layered like a mosaic forged by hands imprinting stories into the fluid landscape of justice. And it was on this stage that Rachel would emerge, entwining her narrative with theirs, a narrative defined by truth, shadowed by loss, and illuminated by potential. When the moment arrived, Rachel climbed onto the stage, the crowd's energy surging like waves cresting beneath a full moon. Every eye focused on her. Each pulse synced to the drumbeat of anticipation, reverberating through the gathered assembly. Her voice rose above the hum, a powerful invocation reaching across the vast congregation, each word a note in the collective song they warbled through shared intention. Today we stand together, not as separate voices calling into the void, but as a unified force, undeterred by shadows cast in our way. Rachel recounted her journey in strokes vivid enough to paint truth over skepticism, each story a thread weaving the narrative tapestry they collectively held. Her words transcended mere articulation, offering an invitation to join in a movement rippling outwards with unstoppable force, gathering momentum through action bred by empathy. She spoke of Cheyenne, the sister whose memory provided grounding like roots, and of the responsibility born from the opportunity to honor her through everlasting change. The crowd responded with resonance, embracing Cheyenne's legacy as part of a shared journey made fierce by those unwilling to relinquish their truth. Around her, other speakers added their voices to the harmony, a choir comprised of youth and elders, artists and educators, all resolute in forging a future unbound by historical inertia. Their stories ignited sparks within the assembly, carrying each one nearer to justice through the power of storytelling and engagement. The rally transcended expectations, unfolding as a dialogue, an amplification of voices whose vibrations promised transformation in spaces both intimate and expansive. Symbolic in dimension, but personal in impact, the event became a communal testament to solidarity woven through hope. When Rachel descended from the stage, the crowd surrounding her pulsed with gratitude, an outpouring of shared humanity that fueled spirits and reassured hearts carved with potentiality. It was not simply an event, but a promise fulfilled, a vision brought to life through collective vibrance and steadfast resolve. As daylight waned, painting the park in dusky hues of twilight's embrace, Rachel absorbed the scene. Together they had conjured a new reality, one where justice sang, freedom proclaimed, and silence bent in submission to truths long deferred. Rachel carried the essence of the rally within her, a light limning each breath with promise. In each face she had seen more than unity. She had seen assurance of the world they aimed to create, through voices woven into the fabric of justice unfurling beneath limitless sky. Guided by conviction and strengthened by community, Rachel departed from the rally transformed, conscious that they were architects of tomorrows insisting to be reimagined. With every step taken from the park and into night's nascent embrace, she smiled, a testament to the enduring hope within the human spirit that refused to be extinguished, reaffirming the journey with every stride. As Rachel ventured from the rally into the quiet embrace of the evening, a gentle sense of accomplishment settled over her like a comforting shawl. The bustling city, with its myriad sounds and lights, seemed almost hushed, as if pausing to honor the day's profound resonance. She walked through familiar streets, now wrapped in dusk's tender cloak, her heart full with the echoes of unity and resolve. The rally had been a living testament to the power of collective voices, each one a beacon of hope and a potent reminder that change was not just possible, but inevitable when nurtured with sincerity and courage. Rachel's journey felt as though it had come full circle, weaving narratives of past struggles into a vibrant tapestry of future possibility. Returning home, Rachel savored the lingering warmth of shared humanity that enveloped her like a cherished memory. Her apartment, a sanctuary of reflection and renewal, welcomed her back with open arms. She set down her belongings, pausing to absorb the stillness that embraced her, a quiet contrast to the vibrant outpouring of the day. As night deepened, she settled into her favorite chair by the window, an old friend that had witnessed countless musings and reflections. She glanced around at the room's contents, photographs echoing laughter, mementos of battles won and lost, reminders of the unabating fight for justice that defined her days. The stars, steadfast in their glow, watched over the city with gentle constancy. Their twinkle was a reminder that beyond the complexities of humanity lay a universe vast and infinite, a canvas upon which the stories of individuals like Rachel painted small yet significant strokes in the grand narrative of existence. Rachel allowed herself the luxury of stillness, each heartbeat a metronome calibrating her gratitude and determination. Her mind played back snippets of the rally, the inspired speeches, the diverse faces animated by purpose, the hands lifted in silent pledges to join the movement toward equity and understanding. She thought of Cheyenne, her presence a spectral shadow dancing on the edge of her consciousness, a guardian whispering strength and wisdom through the challenges faced and the victories celebrated. Cheyenne's legacy was more than a memory, it was an enduring force, propelling Rachel and all who walked beside her toward a future resplendent with the justice she had yearned for. The city's nocturne unfolded with a serene cadence, streetlights casting gentle reflections on the pavement like ethereal guides pointing toward paths enriched by hope and resilience. Rachel closed her eyes, each breath a testament to the journey beyond today, a journey sustained by community, forged through a commitment to embody the change she aspired to see. As quiet enveloped her, she considered the day's impact, how the seeds sown through dialogue, action, and connection could bear fruit not just in policy or practice, but in hearts transformed by empathy and compassion. The rally symbolized more than an event. It was a milestone, heralding the unfolding of new stories draped in courage and community. In this intimate moment between night and day, Rachel found tranquility in the vision of a future where justice was not a goal, but a living, breathing truth, interwoven with the fabric of life. She understood that while the journey was unending, every step forward made a difference. Each echo of promise took them closer to a horizon unfurled by shared dreams and steadfast resolve. Rachel opened her eyes, cast her gaze over the cityscape, and whispered a quiet vow to continue nurturing the seeds of change planted today, to foster connections that transcend difference, and to champion justice in all its forms. The night drew her gently into its embrace, a lullaby of progress woven with humankind's most noble aspirations. As sleep claimed her, Rachel knew that when the sun rose, it would herald new opportunities to write chapters yet untold, to shape worlds limitless in potential born from the tendrils of compassion. As consciousness ebbed into dream, she pondered the enduring question, how will you shape the world around you? Inviting the world to engage further, we ask, what change will you herald? Share, subscribe, and unite in this unfolding narrative of justice reclaimed, and let us stride forward together into a brighter tomorrow.